Hello. Welcome to more Higurashi. I've got a hot chocolate. Why's my mic turned like that? There you go. How's this one? Yep, tastes good. Hello, peoples. Right, so last time we got tortured by our family and had our fingernails removed. And then we almost killed our sister by choking her to death because we thought that she was making fun of our missing I guess love interest. Cause he's missing, and we started an investigation, and that was pretty much it. Obviously getting closer to June 1983. I'm not sure exactly when we're gonna hit it. Could be this stream. Probably either this stream or next stream. But yeah, let's just continue from the end of chapter 8.
A love that is light and fleeting like a soap bubble. If it seeks the sky, it will break and vanish before long. The girl's thoughts weren't granted. The tears that were shed changed to the color of blood and yearned for sacrifice. The sadness that pierced her transformed into rage and ultimately to murderous intent. Everything was absorbed in pure black, and the darkness continued to spread. In the end, even to herself. Would it be better if I hadn't been born? This blood-stained hand couldn't even grasp the air.
Oh, well there you go. Anno Domini 1983.
The fourth year of the series of mysterious deaths in Hinamizawa, also known as Oyashiro-sama's curse, 1 year after Satoshi Hojo's disappearance. I hadn't been able to get used to my new school in Okinomiya, but I had some friends there now. Since I got a part-time job at my relative's store, I had some extra pocket money too. I ended up living with my parents after all, so I didn't have to pay for living expenses. It felt great to get to finally freely spend the money I'd earned from working. I still used the room Kasai set up for me from time to time. It was a convenient hideout for when I didn't want to see my parents. In fact, I was planning to spend a day there today. Damn that teacher. She told my parents that I was skipping classes. My dad got upset, and that was why I didn't want to stay at home. I had been asking for it, though. My teacher should know that my dad is a Yakuza, and that he gets really scary when he's mad. On the whole, my life had been going well so far, except that it was boring. The reason I could enjoy this lifestyle is probably because I had to live in secret before. It was a great relief to be able to live without having to fake my identity. While that might have been a valuable experience, I think I learned from it. I was going grocery shopping and thought I'd get enough food for a week or so. My parents would appreciate my presence more after missing me for a week. I was doing this for their sakes. Oh? Oh, wait. Isn't there a 100 yen sale today? Yeah, there is. I knew how to save my pocket money. I was in a good mood. I spun around with my arms spread out. I felt like I was inside a little whirlwind. My arm hit a motorcycle parked on the sidewalk. It obviously wasn't where it was supposed to be. Ow! What the? Who parked this motorcycle here? I gave the motorcycle a kick with no hesitation. There were 3 motorcycles lined up in a row. They all fell like dominoes. It was beautiful and so much fun. Oh? This was odd. I felt like I'd gone through the exact same experience before. While blinking my eyes in an effort to recall when that was, some people grabbed me by the neck and dragged me into a dark alley. It looked like these punks were the owners of those motorcycles. They started shouting at me. This really was strange. I was having deja vu. The fuck are you, bitch? What you think you're doing, huh? Fucking bash your head in, bitch! Gonna pay for what you did! Again? Yeah. That's right. It was when I met Satoshi-kun for the first time. He came to save me. If I pretended to cry again now, would he come to save me again? I made a wish, and I started pretending to cry and beg for mercy. At that time, I doubted my ears. Cut it out! Can't you see she's crying? It was a boy about my age. I couldn't quite see his face because of the light illuminating him from behind. Satoshi-kun? Of course, it couldn't be him. It couldn't be. When I snapped out of my daydream, I realized that it wasn't Satoshi-kun after all. He looked less gracious than Satoshi-kun, so to speak. If Satoshi-kun was pristine and untouched, then this guy would have scratches all over him. But although they were completely different, I got a similar impression from him somehow. What the hell? What the fuck are you? You wanna get hurt or what? Fucking say something! Son of a bitch! The boy looked a bit taken aback. Well, I just thought you might want to let her go because she's crying, so... Huh? The fuck you think you're telling us what you do? What the hell are these guys' speech patterns? Oh, hold on! I'm against violence! What was up with this guy? I felt ashamed that I mistook him for Satoshi-kun even for a second. He seemed cool at first, but he wasn't as cool as Satoshi-kun after all. Well, I mean, I'm sorry that your motorcycles were knocked down, but I hope you don't feel too bad about it. How can I make you feel better? Of course, we don't have any money on us, you know? If you don't got the money, then... If you got no money, you gotta pay with your body! This chick's got some real nice boobies. Let's strip her down and see. Hey, are you kidding me? I tightened my grip on the stun gun in my pocket. Then I turned it up to the maximum intensity. Don't hold a grudge against me if you die, pervs. I love it when girls get stripped in those porn videos. Yeah, the stripping is better than the actual sex. They indulged in their imaginations, which aroused their spirits. Hey now, why are you perverts closing in on me? Gross hands are groping the air. You gonna try and violate me? This stripping is awesome. Stripper. Yeah. Let's strip her from the top to the bottom. Socks off. Oh no, that's too far. She'll be as naked as the jaybird. Hey, are you out of your mind? Don't touch me with those filthy hands. Then a flash of light cut through the air. Was that the boy? You stupid fucks! Blows like thunderbolts knocked the punks down. Wow, so he was actually strong after all? What the hell? You want some? Huh? You don't have a clue, idiots! What the fuck are you on about? There's nothing arousing about stark nakedness. Leave her socks on at least. No matter what! That is the ironclad rule! Listen up, monkeys. What's the difference between Homo sapiens and other animals? That's right, humans wear clothes! Human beings without clothes are just animals! If you get aroused only when the girl's completely naked, you're less than human! You might as well be animals! I'm gonna knock some sense into you! Clench those teeth! You mentioned a porn movie, didn't you? Let's say there's a cosplay sex video. The definition of cosplay is too broad. To lecture on that subject is as difficult as explaining the spirit of Yamato to Yankees parachuting down from B-29s. Dude, I was just having a conversation about the word Yankee earlier. What the hell? So, I'll limit the scope to the most popular ones, school uniforms. What are the 3 most prominent divisions in the larger category of school uniforms? Answer me! That's right, regular uniforms, gym uniforms, and school swimsuits. Both the sailor style and blazer style are included under regular uniforms, by the way. Gym shorts and bloomers are likewise. And the color preference between white and navy school swimsuits is the same. Well, doesn't this sound exciting already? Let's say each of you has a preference in one of these 3 divisions. Hey you, Delinquent A, you take the regular uniform. Delinquent B, you take the gym uniform. And you, Delinquent C, you take the school swimsuit. Picture the image in your head within 3 seconds. Are you done? That's not good enough, do it again! Let's say there's a porn video of your favorite cosplay. Use your imagination. Come on! Say, sir, yes sir, when you got it. Are you really military man, you maggots? Good, you all seem to have an image in your heads now. Let's move on. Imagine that your favorite cosplay is stripped entirely naked because of your stupid desire. Now think! If you take all of their clothes off, that's not cosplay anymore, is it? That sort of video is rampant lately. It's just lamentable. Dude, you're 14. There's no internet. Where the hell are you getting porn videos from? Humans without clothes aren't civilized, they're animals. If only naked girls excited you, you'd be a pack of dogs, monkeys, or pheasants. Pheasants? What the fuck? Pack your bags and get out! Wait! Get back here! As you know, a huge amount of Russian porn vids are going around lately thanks to the end of the Cold War. You don't know that? Get out of here! We're not even 15 minutes in and we're talking about Russian porn videos. Imagine getting yelled about cosplay porn by a 1-year-old. He's 14. I guess you just type it. Yeah. I mean, this is a power move on Keiichi's part. Let's not belabor the point here. I heard that a style called Beautiful Russian Schoolgirl, which is a combination of the Japanese uniform fetish and some Russian thing, is emerging, but I'll never accept that. School uniforms are part of Japanese culture and art. Those stupid barbarians will never understand the Japanese spirit. Are you listening? You pathetic squid? Clench your teeth! I'll train you till you drop! Jesus Christ. I won't let you sleep until you're capable of perfecting your imagination skills! That's Keiichi. I don't know. Here comes my whip! At that point, I heard a bustle of people running this way. Hinami's always ahead of the curve with its own form of internet, run entirely on Oyashiro-sama's curse. Good shit. Maibara-san! I gathered some people! I saw several kids running towards us. Seemed like our backup had arrived. Ah, shit! Let's get out of here! The 3 punks had just been standing there agape, but they started running away when they saw that many people. You're awesome, Maibara-san! You had those punks transfixed all by yourself! One of them even had a nosebleed. You're so strong, Maibara-san! It seems my personal aura has grown more powerful. If this keeps up, I'll soon surpass even Coach's Made in Heaven reality marble. Anyway. Are you alright, Mion? The boy was apparently called Maibara.
He turned around to face me. Even the way he mistook me for Mion sounded like Satoshi-kun. But Satoshi-kun isn't a pervert like him. I was anxious to see how you'd fight back, but... I guess 3 guys were too many, huh? I don't believe it! I was still confused. I couldn't yet grasp the situation. Who was this guy? Mion has friends like him? I was still spacing out in shock, so I forgot to move until his hand touched my head. Well, you know, I'll forget that I saw you cry. So, cheer up, okay? Rub, rub. The boy called Maibara stroked my head roughly. It didn't feel good. It hurt, actually. But still, his hand had the same warmth. Later on, Mion told me about him. He was called Keiichi Maibara. Kei-chan for short. He's 1 grade below us. Not only that, but he just moved to Hinamizawa. Thanks to his attitude and lack of manners, he'd already become an idol in their class. Mion joyously explained all of this. Sure, he sounded like a fun kid. I knew why Mion was into him. But Satoshi-kun is way cooler. He wasn't worth stealing from Sis. Or was he? My heart throbbed. I was excited. Felt like I'd gotten a new toy. I was curious as to what kind of relationship Mion intended to build with him. I'd love to tease her about it. Thanks, Kei-chan. Let me buy you a drink. My uncle's restaurant is just nearby, so why don't we go there? Satoshi-kun would refuse out of modesty. But Keiichi Maibara said, okay, within 2 seconds. Well then, I couldn't wait to tease the 2 of them. My boring life suddenly became bright again. Whoa, hey, don't cling to my arm! Don't you like it? Well, I don't hate it, but it's just your breasts that are touching me, and... I don't actually remember what my Keiichi voice is, unfortunately. I don't know if that's accurate. My breasts bother you? Keiichi Maibara was fun. Mion thought the same way I did. She would always talk about him. I was happy for her. It made me smile. I guess Kei-chan is really your favorite, huh, sis? What's the most interesting thing about him? Let's see. To put it plainly, he's just funny. For example, just a couple of days ago in the club. Mion really liked him, but didn't seem to think it was love yet. She's reserved in that area, so that was really like her. It's relatively the same, but it's been a hot minute. Yeah, okay. As for me, well... Me? Well... I didn't hate him, but my feelings weren't the same as Mion's. Kei-chan was just too childish compared to Satoshi-kun. I wondered how Satoshi-kun was doing. Was he waiting for things to cool down somewhere far away? The case had already been solved, though. That dopehead was the murderer. There was no reason for him to wait anymore. I shook my head. I shouldn't think about it too much. Oh, wait, I know. The case was confidential, so the arrest of the culprit hadn't been made public. So Satoshi-kun hadn't realized that he could come back. I know he's a little thick-headed. Maybe he'd be waiting for things to calm down until the end of time. But if so, couldn't he give a call to Satoko at least? He should tell her he's living in a faraway place, but that he'd be coming home soon. Ah, that stupid Satoko. She'd been living with Rika Furude since Satoshi-kun went away. So nobody would pick up the phone even if he called. Stupid girl. Don't you want your big brother to come home? Given Satoshi-kun's personality, he wouldn't remember any phone numbers other than his home number, so he wouldn't be able to contact anybody in Hinamizawa. Maybe he's been calling Satoko every night. He keeps ringing, but nobody picks up. Then he'd assume Satoko might be taking a bath or be in the restroom. He put on a puzzled smile while mumbling, like always. He imitated his voice without realizing it. After that... What? What's up? Didn't you say something, Shion? I laughed it off and urged Mion to continue. Love how there is a hanger with a wristband / bracelet looking thing next to Shion's door. Oh, it must have been in the other scene. I didn't see it. I hadn't been listening to her because I was thinking about Satoshi-kun. I thought she was still happily talking about Kei-chan, but Mion sounded grim now. Her faint smile looked pitiful. It was too late to ask what was going on, so instead I concentrated on her story instead.
After all that, Uncle gave everybody $1 as a thank you gift. Everybody except for me. Okay, except for you. I wanted one too. But I couldn't say it in front of everybody. You still can't express your needs, huh? And then? Mion sniffled. I realized that she was on the verge of tears. The cutest doll was in Kei-chan's bag. And you wanted that doll? It didn't matter which one. But although Kei-chan knew only I didn't get one, he didn't give it to me. He didn't give it to me. He said the doll wouldn't fit me and that I should be born as a boy in my next life. That's what he said. That was Keiichi's weak point. He might be fun and popular, but he wasn't mature. Not like Satoshi-kun. Oh yeah, there is like a bracelet on the hanger. I want to start all over. I want to go back to when I just met him and start all over. I want him to treat me like a girl from the beginning. Don't take it too seriously. It'll be okay, because it's just you who wants to start over while he didn't even notice anything wrong. It'd be harder if you guys fought over it or something. Can I start over? If you didn't cry in front of him, it's not too late. You can cry as much as you want now, and if you show him a different side of you from tomorrow on, you can still fix it. Okay. I'm amazed how insensitive he is, but part of that is just the impression you've been giving him so far. If you change your attitude from tomorrow on, you can still change his mind. How do I change my attitude? How? If I tell you to act cute, you'd start going to school in frilly clothes. So don't think and just be natural. But without overdoing it, pay attention to how you behave around him. Ah, and don't forget to be cautious of Rena. She's a bit ahead of you so far. Kei-chan might prefer Rena at this point. It's true. Rena's really girly. She's cute and caring. That just means you can't slack off for even a moment, sis, because you've got a rival. Tears can attract men, but they don't anchor them. You should always be smiling, but cry when it really counts. That's how you typically do it. Maybe I should try that on Kei-chan myself. No, don't! He's the boy you like, so I guess it's natural that I like him too. How can I attract him? Hey sis, why don't we have a competition over him? No! Never! I'll kick you into orbit if you come near Hinamizawa! I'm happy for you, sis. It's not too late at all. It's important to know the distance between the boy you love and yourself, and shift the way you appeal to him to compensate. The boy I love is missing, you know. I don't even know where he is, or when he's coming back. Compared to that, you're very lucky. Mion was saying she'd do her best from tomorrow on, with red, tearful eyes, but I sensed a deeply negative feeling emerging inside me. Nobody was blaming Mion for being happy with Keiichi. I wasn't envious. I wasn't jealous. I didn't want her to be blamed the same way I was blamed. It was just that there was no space for Satoshi-kun in Mion's mind anymore, filled as it was with Kei-chan and her other friends now. It didn't matter to her if Satoshi-kun came back or not, just like how she didn't care if it was sunny or rainy tomorrow. What about me then? Had I been thinking about Satoshi-kun all the time for the past year? I wasn't proud of my own answer. I'd become used to life without Satoshi-kun. His absence didn't hurt me anymore. I was getting used to life with Keiichi Maebara, and if I let my guard down, he might just fill up the space I've been saving for Satoshi-kun. If Shion Sonozaki had prayed harder for Satoshi-kun to return, he might have come home already. Where did Satoshi-kun go? Last year, right after his disappearance, I'd paid close attention to the information circulating in the Sonozaki family and its underground connections, and I frequently went to the police station to check with Oishi for new information. Even with all that, I couldn't get any new leads on his whereabouts. I eventually became disinterested in Oyashiro-sama's curse, which surrounded Satoshi-kun's disappearance. I researched the dark history of the village. The more I looked into it, the less likely his survival seemed. I'd returned Mio-san's scrapbooks to her, and then I hadn't gone to the library since. I started a new life in a new school. I made new friends, and in the same way, as falling leaves cover the ground, I felt like I was losing sight of what was really important to me. It was already almost the end of spring. They said that summer was coming early, and it'd be very hot this year. Normally it'd be the rainy season now, but we'd had no rain at all. The Watanagashi festival was right around the corner. It'd been almost a year since Satoshi-kun went missing. In Hinamizawa, they don't allow you to talk openly about Oyashiro-sama's curse, or the series of mysterious deaths. So everybody acts like the murder of Satoshi-kun's aunt never happened. That's because Satoshi Hojo was a member of the family of traders. He fell victim to Oyashiro-sama's curse on the 4th year running. He was demoned away. Everybody was trying to forget about his existence and erase their memories of him. Don't make him disappear because of the curse. Don't erase his existence! Satoshi-kun was living in Hinamizawa just a year ago. He went to school. He was an A student. He was a member of the Hinamizawa Fighters. He could never hit the ball when it really mattered. He was unreliable, but pure. He was warm. Because of the curse, people made him disappear. They stopped mentioning his name and acted like he never existed. A new resident like Keiichi Maebara wouldn't even know him. He seriously believed that Satoshi-kun had transferred out. I miss you, Satoshi-kun. I want to go shopping with you again. I want to be in a baseball game with you again and get a cold drink afterwards. I want to tease you and I want you to stroke my head again. Your hand was so warm. I felt as if my whole body was being caressed. Satoshi-kun. I haven't opened this notebook in a while. My feelings have been written down for over 150 pages. This notebook is the key to my heart. The other me who's been sleeping since last year is slowly waking up. I'm quite amazed by your dirty deeds, Keiichi-san. He is a boy after all. Mi-chan, Shi-chan, Keiichi-kun looks confused. How? Did you hear that, sis? We're not playing tug of war here. Are you trying to tear Kei-chan apart? I'm not playing tug of war. You're the one who's stretching him. Go back to Okinomiya, Shion. Okay, I will. Oops. I let go of Keiichi suddenly, so he and Sis flew off like a rubber band. Keiichi rolled on the ground while Sis was stuck in a bush head first. What lively people. See you, Kei-chan. Sis might assault me if I stick around any longer, so I'll get going. Oh, Shion. Thanks for today. Ah, forget it. I didn't do much. See you, Shion. His hand landed on my head. Rub, rub, rub. He stroked my head pretty roughly, but the warmth reminded me. Excuse me, I'm going. See you, sis. Don't ever come here again! Rena, keep your eyes on her! Satoko, set traps! Rika-chan, purify this area with salt! I notice that my mic fucking peaks constantly even when I'm just talking normally. I don't know. I would mess with it by midstream, so probably better to do it another time. Hang on, I'm gonna try to finish my hot chocolate here. Okay. The warmth remained on the top of my head. It felt ticklish and sore. I had to stop. I got off my moped and pushed that aching spot against a telephone pole. I'm sorry, Satoshi-kun. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I never forgot about you. I still remember you. I'm worthless without you. I can't stand life without you because it's gray and cold and boring. It's true. I can never smile because you aren't here. I can't. See you, Shion. Keiichi's face appeared in my mind. I recalled the touch of his hand stroking my head. It wasn't warm. I wasn't happy. It was rough and painful. I hate that insensitive guy. He's too childish, rude, and cold. He's like a stray dog. I wasn't happy. It wasn't warm. I wasn't happy or overjoyed at all. No! Satoshi! Kun! Satoshi-kun mumbled. He didn't know what to say in a situation like this, but he knew that he had better say something. He wanted to say something, but he didn't know what to say, so he just mumbled. I'm sorry, Shion. Are you apologizing, Satoshi-kun? I'm the one who should apologize, even though I said I'd wait for you, even though I believed my heart wouldn't change. My heart is full of holes. You're leaking out from the small cracks in my heart, little by little. You're leaking out from me. Are you suffering because I'm here? Why? You're so precious to me. So don't say that. I've been here with you all this time. But I think I'm hurting you by continuing to exist. I don't want that. That's not true! No! Where have you been, Satoshi-kun? You weren't with me. Tell me where you are. What's the address? What's the postal code? What's the name of the city? What's the street number? Tell me! There isn't an address. I knew it. Telling me you've always been with me, always by my side. That's such a cliche. Which do you prefer, Shion? If I can give you strength, I'll stay by your side forever. But if you're suffering because of me, I'll disappear right away. Don't say that. I want to be with you. Always. I want to be with you forever. Okay, I'll stay with you then. A car passed by. The noise snapped me out of my reverie. The sky was turning orange. I should get home before it gets cold. I should go home to Okinomiya. You're with me, right? Are you with me right now? Satoshi-kun? I walked back to my moped. My feet sank into the grass. Crunch, crunch, crunch. I stopped when I reached my bike, but then I heard an extra footstep. I gasped. I could feel somebody else's presence. I'm not stupid. Nobody else was around here. Nobody had suddenly appeared behind me. So I wasn't surprised to find nobody when I turned around. But he was definitely still there. Satoshi-kun. I couldn't see him, but he was there. He was there for me. Satoshi-kun never lies. He said he'd be with me all the time. I'd just been too insensitive to feel his existence until now. Satoshi-kun. Satoshi-kun! A breeze tickled my hair. It felt cold, but to me it was nothing but the warmth of his hand. It took me a while to notice that my cheeks were wet with tears. I was too scared to sleep. If I went to sleep, I might not find Satoshi-kun there in the morning, so I kept talking to him until I passed out. I told him about what happened while he was missing. I told him that I realized how much I loved him after he went away. I'd searched for him, looking into various different things. I gathered underground information through Kasai and bargained for police information with Oishi. But I couldn't find any leads. A long time passed, but I kept thinking about him. Etc., etc. I told him all the small details from my daily life. The places I wanted to go with him. The things I wanted to do with him. The food I wanted to share with him. And, and I told him a lot of things. I was sitting up at first, but I got tired, so I lay down. I got tired of moving my mouth, too, so I started talking to him in my mind. It was the happiest night I'd ever had. God. As soon as I finish my fucking hot chocolate, the rasp in my throat comes back and I can hear anything. Oh, hey Sketch. I assume you saw the previous stream, right? Because I know that you were catching up while I was kind of taking a hiatus, and then I did another stream a few days ago, and then there's this one. So assuming that you've seen that one as well, so far we've cut forward to 1983. As Shion, we have met Keiichi, and we're basically immediately comparing him to Satoshi. You know, we're saying all these things about, oh, he's not the same. We don't like him as much. He's rough. He's not mature. And yet we seem to kind of be feeling something anyway. We talked to Mion about her feelings for him. We were at the festival and we were teasing them, and then we left, and then we seemed to have some sort of a breakdown at the side of the road, talking to Satoshi and somehow feeling his presence and talking to him, and then went home and had a basically a night where we were talking to him in some way. That's it. When I woke up, I didn't find Satoshi-kun by my side. I knew it somehow. I was afraid of it. That was why I didn't want to go to sleep. But at least I got to see him for one more night. Just when I resigned myself to that, I felt Satoshi-kun's presence again. It wasn't a dream after all. I thanked God. And so I began my strange life with Satoshi-kun. As promised, Satoshi-kun was always by my side. He couldn't laugh, mumble, or stroke my head. Okay, cool. But he was always with me, always right by my side. He disappeared sometimes, but he'd come back when I looked for him. It seemed that all I could hear was his footsteps. That's just the way it was. It was a bit sad, but I was still satisfied. His presence was really faint, so it was hard to sense him in a crowd. But he never left me. If he were tangible, I'd be taking his hand all the time so that he wouldn't be lost. In contrast, I could feel him very strongly in a quiet environment. Of course, I couldn't tell what his expressions were because he was just a presence. But after I got used to it, I could tell what he was thinking. At first, I could only tell if he was laughing or not. Eventually, I started to feel his emotions more strongly. I could communicate with him normally. I was usually alone with him, though. I didn't want to go to school or hang out with my friends anymore. But Satoshi-kun got upset about that. He'd keep mumbling unhappily. Now that I knew he'd always be with me, I shouldn't just stay home all the time. I was sticking to my time alone with him, however, because I was scared that he might suddenly disappear again, and I wanted to make the most of the time I was sharing with him right now. I must have been worrying too excessively. Satoshi-kun will always be by my side. Yeah, that was his promise. He never breaks his promises. I was fine because he was there. Of course, I couldn't tell anybody about him, not even Sis. I could try to explain it to them, but they'd never understand. But I was certain that he was with me. So, I'd be alright. I never get fed up with life with him. He's really cute, you know? We always walk together, but when I stop, he always walks one extra step. That's so adorable. I love it.
Shion-san, what are you going to do on Watanagashi this year?
I guess I'll have some fun at the festival. Maybe I'll tease Sis and her friends. I wanted to go to the festival with Satoshi-kun. I knew he liked to see me having fun with everybody. He might get jealous if I play with Kei-chan, but Satoshi-kun isn't very sensitive in that way. Satoshi-kun loved to see me and my friends have fun. So I should have a lot of fun for his sake. Then I talk about the day with him later.
How are you going to Hinamizawa? I can give you a ride if you want.
I'm taking my moped, so you don't have to.
That won't do. Aren't you going to the family party afterwards? I can't let you drive under the influence.
He won't let me drive, but he's kind enough to let me drink. Alright, take me then.
Good. Let's leave before nightfall. I'll come pick you up around that time.
After Kasai left, I sensed that Satoshi-kun was excited about going to the festival. Watanagashi, huh? So it's been almost a year since you went away. Satoshi-kun seemed confused. I bet you're going all, right now, aren't you? We laughed together.
Welcome! Here's your net and a bowl. Ah, yes, the festival. Well, it was fun knowing you, Shio.
Great! Wow, these fish are so active. They look delicious. I could eat this little one raw right here.
Nothing wrong with Kasai Sprite.
Huh? What are you saying, Mion-san? Mi-chan, you eat goldfish?
He looks a lot like your uncle with red hair. Huh. Interesting. Ooh.
Did you eat the one I gave you last year, too? No, I didn't say that.
Sis shook her head hard. She turned all red. But you just said it. Free trial of life. You said they look delicious.
I heard it too. Sis eats everything as long as it fits inside her mouth. If it's really good, I'll try it once. No, you can't, Rika-chan. You're gonna get sick.
Does it look relatively the same in the anime? Yeah, I mean, everyone kind of has, like, an art style shift between the different versions of this and, like, the anime adaptations and the manga and stuff. And actually, I think the manga was even authored by multiple people, or at least illustrated by multiple people. But yeah. I mean, yeah, he has the same kind of design. Wait a minute. Hey, you. How long have you been here, Shion?
Hi, Kei-chan, Sis, and everyone else. Good evening.
Pardon me.
Ah! When did you get here, Shion? I've been here since you were at the chow mein booth. I found you guys quickly since you were making so much noise. Hey! You're not in our club. Get lost! Don't be mean, sis. Right, Kei-chan? You're fine if I come with you guys, right?
I took Kei-chan's arm and held it between my breasts. Puff, puff. We were gonna have a ball. Kasai looks better in the anime? Fair enough. The word Watanagashi gives you Pavlovian responses, same as the Rayman PS1 twinkle noise. Do you know what noise I hated in fucking Rayman PS1? The fucking level... Actually, I think it might be different in the PS1 version, but... I played it on the DSiWare store, and, the fucking, like, the level exit jingle is so loud. Like, you'll have the background music, and then Rayman will just be like, yeah! Ding. It would always, like... It wouldn't scare me, but it was a little too loud. I went around the booths with Sis and her friends. I joked around and laughed out loud. I teased Kei-chan and Sis, too. Kei-chan was at the center of the group, so if I did something to him, it naturally involved everybody else. It looked like Satoshi-kun was having a hard time finding his own spot in the crowd. When I glanced at him in a quiet moment, he smiled and told me to have fun without worrying about him. If he were tangible, I'd pull his arm to join the crowd. It made me sad that I couldn't do that. But yeah, Watanagashi is definitely, when shit tends to go down. I bumped into somebody's shoulder. It was obviously my fault, so I apologized right away. As it turned out, it was somebody I knew. Oh. Best part is it's even louder on the console version. Oh, good shit. Yeah, it's a bit of a silly jingle. I don't know. I can never decide if I like it or hate it. Looks like you're having fun. Good evening, Shion-chan. The moon looks beautiful tonight, doesn't it? Oh, it's been forever, Takano-san. And you were... Nice to meet you. I'm Tomitake. I heard you were Mion-chan's twin sister.
Nice to meet you too, Tomitaka-san. I heard you were a great cameraman. Please take a picture of me someday.
It's these two. I'm just an amateur dreaming of going professional.
Well, you're actually great, Jiro-san. You're good at many things.
Yeah, Rayman 1 is really hard. Especially since any percent and 100% is the same thing in Rayman 1. No, I need to study more. I have no talent, so I have to put out a lot of effort to compensate.
They must have been in a relationship. You two look so happy together. Am I interrupting you? Oh no. I appreciate your consideration, but you're not interrupting us at all. And you can call me Mio like before. Not Takano-san. It's a bit hard for me to call someone older than me by her first name. Well, never mind. I smiled bashfully, and Takano-san smiled back elegantly. I haven't seen you in the library since. I wanted to talk to you more as a fellow researcher.
The song Livy and Rose. Wonder how these two die this time. Can we get a Tomitake and Takano life speedrun code? About that, something about the answer arcs will kind of become a little more evident. Well, yeah, it's not. We'll see how that goes.
Well, when I feel like it.
A fellow researcher. Are you interested in it too, Shion-chan? I mean, in the legend of this village?
Tomitaka-san raised his eyebrows. As far as I knew, Takano-san's hobby wasn't exactly normal. On the surface, her research dealt with the cultural history of ancient Hinamizawa, but its main focus was the Watanagashi festival from ancient times.
Well, Reka and Tomitake Takano die %. There's probably like an arc in Go where it starts. I seem to recall there's one in Go where it cuts to the chase and immediately shows the murder. Or the death or something. I'm not sure.
The cannibal banquet in which they captured and gutted a living sacrifice.
Oh, what the hell's going on? There we go.
Her research covered various stories surrounding that and other legends of cruelty. It was nothing if not gory. That was where her main interests lay, so I didn't feel comfortable being called a fellow researcher, to be honest. But objectively speaking, her research notes were fun to read. It was then that I heard the loud booms of the taiko drums.
Maybe the same researcher, goddammit.
The main event of the Watanagashi festival, the dedication dance, was about to start. According to Takano-san's hypothesis, the part of the dance where the shrine maiden tears open a futon mat represents gutting a living victim.
De Guy Perez y Muerta Mildred. Good.
It's starting. I should head over. Aren't you guys coming to see Rika-chama's performance? Tomitake-san looked bewildered. Did that mean he wasn't coming? Takano-san giggled, then whispered in my ear. To tell you the truth, I don't hire black people. Okay, no. We're thinking of sneaking into the ritual storehouse. Eh? She made it sound like she was going to do something fun, but it wouldn't be amusing to anyone who knew what the ritual storehouse was. The ritual storehouse, or the storehouse for ritual implements, is sort of a treasure house belonging to the Furude shrine. I had heard that Oyashiro-sama's sacred treasures were stored in there.
Oh yeah, okay. I just remembered. There was. I'm trying to remember if there was anything indicating the thing I was talking about, and there was, but it was in a scene that you weren't here for. So when we were talking to Mion about her feelings for Keiichi, she was basically crying to us and describing the time. She was describing how they won prizes from the toy store, and Keiichi got a doll, and Mion was the only one to not have one. And then he gave it to Rena instead of to her because he said that she wasn't, like, it didn't suit her. And Mion was really upset about that. So that was basically supposed to be an indication that this is a very similar, at the very least, timeline to the Watanagashi chapter. So yeah. And then, of course, we have this too. I'd heard that Oyashiro-sama's sacred treasures are stored in there. Only people from the Furude family and selected members of the other 3 families are allowed to enter.
They believe that if other people enter, the place will be desecrated. Everybody in Hinamizawa must have been curious about what was in there when they were kids. But the storehouse was always tightly locked. You couldn't just peek into it either. Wasn't the We Don't Hire Black People I'm from That's So Raven episode? Yes. But I'm specifically quoting a YouTube poop called Denver Grumbles to Himself About Your Incompetence. Which is... It's mostly the... Denver the Last Dinosaur theme song. And then it just... like, goes through, like, a weird transition into the vision of that lady saying that in that episode, and then it zooms out to a picture of, like, a weird B-movie knockoff. It's a fucking weird-ass video. The dollars given for the wrong anime here. The prophecy has been fulfilled. Kids would get chided if they played around it, so they learned to stay away. I didn't like being around it myself, since I was familiar with all that. Even though I didn't believe in curses, I still didn't want to be near it. It was also very out of context. I mean, it was, but also I don't think the episode even gives that much extra context. It's pretty much exactly what it seems on the tin. If I remember right, that show is about Raven, and I think her power is just she can see things that, like, visions of what will happen in the future. And so, like, I think the episode is she's trying... This is so off topic, but I think I haven't seen the episode, but I think she's trying to get a job at some, like, clothes store or something, or, like, a fashion place. And, like, she is really qualified and, like, aces the interview or something, but then doesn't get hired anyway, and she's, like, really confused about this, and kind of suspects that maybe there's more to it, but, you know, doesn't want to play that card necessarily. But then she gets the vision of the lady that works at the store, like, admitting that she just outright doesn't hire black people, and then the episode is spent like, how did that happen? How is that future possible? Can I, like, if that's true, which it is, because it's a vision of the future, like, how can I get myself in a situation where I can, you know, basically prove that in real life? And yeah, basically. It's an interesting concept for a show and concept for an episode, I suppose. But yeah, anyway. Even though I didn't believe in curses, I still didn't want to be near it. Nothing good can come from breaking the rules. Were they still going to enter the ritual storehouse despite all that? I'm pretty sure it's tightly locked. It was until last year. Rika-chan had the heavy bolt changed to a cheap padlock, because the bolt was too heavy for her to lift. Did you know that? No. But even if it's cheap, it's still locked, isn't it? Jiro-san is very skilled. Back to curses and death. Anyway, back to murder. Oh, are you good at lockpicking? Once the Watanagashi ritual starts, everybody will gather around the stage, right? Then the area around the storehouse will be completely devoid of people. Tonight, this place will be a blind spot. Can't see the forest for the trees, I suppose. According to her hypothesis, the ancient tools used for human dissection and torture would be found in the ritual storehouse. Why don't you join us in a bit? It's now or never. So, maybe I'll see you then. You can already smell it decaying. Takano-san, what are you telling her? Just girl talk. Let's go to some dark place for a quick date. Hey Jiro, wanna go fuck in the bushes? Huh? Takano-san walked against the flow of the crowd alongside Tomitake-san. The ritual storehouse, huh? It was supposedly filled with torture tools. Considering what they had in the underground torture room at the Sonozaki house, that's quite possible. Satoshi-kun fell victim to the curse in the 4th year. His aunt's death was the sign of Oyashiro-sama's curse. Satoshi-kun was the sacrifice to pacify Oyashiro-sama's anger. That was what Takano-san said last year. Bestie talk. It was just her hypothesis. At present, I wanted to deny her hypothesis because I wanted to believe that Satoshi-kun was still alive. If her hypothesis was correct, either some religious fanatic or somebody from the 3 families must be imitating the curse in order to revive the ancient custom of Onigafuchi. That would mean that it was them who killed Satoshi-kun. So what if the ritual storehouse was filled with garbage instead of torture implements?
Maybe it was filled with broken palanquins or freshly painted signboards for the festival. You'd love to write an arc of a pissed-off player who's played the previous chapters going through all this. What then? It wasn't really hard for me to believe that it was filled with the chemical smell of paint. Maybe I'll get to deny the hypothesis that Satoshi-kun was sacrificed by seeing the inside of the ritual storehouse for myself. Whatever was in there, it didn't mean that Satoshi-kun would come back. Satoshi-kun, what should I do? Since most people went to see Rika-chama's ritual dance, the festival grounds were deadly quiet. Even so, I couldn't sense Satoshi-kun. Did he go somewhere, or was I not paying enough attention? Or maybe he wasn't feeling any emotions in particular. After thinking for a while, I decided to go in with them. It had been almost a year since Satoshi-kun's disappearance. I'd been avoiding the truth because I was afraid he might be dead. But now I had a chance. I had a chance to see the inside of the ritual storehouse. I felt as though something divine had arranged that coincidence. On my way to the storehouse, I noticed Keiichi. He was jumping up and down, trying to see Rika-chama's dedication dance over people's shoulders. If I took him along, we could split the guilt. Oyashiro-sama might put a curse on me for entering his divine storehouse. I wanted a partner in crime. Since the boy I loved disappeared last year because of the curse, maybe Mion's love should disappear this year. Whoa, what am I thinking? That must have been the demon inside me. I shook the thought out of my head. What's going on, Shion? Where's the best place to see Rika-chan's dance from? Is it far? Huh? I never said I was going to show you that. We made it to the ritual storehouse. Keiichi was baffled by the whole situation. Our timing had been perfect. I could see Tomitake-san picking the lock. Even though Keiichi must have been curious, he insisted that we shouldn't go in. But I talked him into it anyway. He was quick to change his mind when Tomitake-san joined in. It was completely dark inside, so Takano-san lit a battery-powered lantern. A small entry space appeared before us. Is implying Keiichi's a midget? Nah, he's 14 and there's like a bunch of adults. It's probably like uphill or something. It's so dark in here. Take care not to trip over anything. You feel bad for Rika. We never actually stay and watch the show. She probably works so hard to practice for. Yeah, I mean, we get to see it in other chapters, I think. Or at least it's described. In Higurashi Go, there's a running joke in the community that watched that where like, in one of the arcs, you get to see a really well-crafted animation of her dance. It looks absolutely gorgeous. And they reuse the animation like 4 more times throughout the rest of the series. I guess because they were so proud of it. And they're like, we can't just show it the one time. We got to shove it into every arc. So we always get the gorgeous animation of Rika dancing. Did you bring a light? No. I appreciate the concern. Okay, Breaker, this is the doorman speaking. If anybody picking out what I'm putting out, come on back. We're shutting the door now. Takano-san closed the door with a smile, as if leaving Tomitake-san out on purpose. Man. Alright, everyone, have fun. As soon as the heavy door was closed, we were surrounded by a quiet darkness. All we could rely on was Takano-san's lantern. It'll be fine. It's an outdoor lantern with backup batteries inside. Batteries sold separately. Requires 3 AA batteries. Luffing. Anyway, it won't go out or anything. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't realize that would be visible in the stream. That's good. Takano-san teased Keiichi a little. Keiichi, in turn, looked a little pale. He seemed to be able to recognize the sanctity of the building, even though he wasn't from Hinamizawa. Let's go in. Oh, hey, Planeful. You've seen red Photoshop clouds over black background several times in this VN. Hey, look, you gotta be resourceful, right? After Takano-san opened the heavy inner door, a dusty, foul smell flowed out. It was like the smell of a pantry that hadn't been opened in years, and the smell of a fish market mixed together. I didn't know exactly how to describe it, but it was a bad smell. From listening to the echo of our footsteps, I could tell that this room was much bigger than the one we were just in. When Takano-san raised her lantern, I could clearly see just how big it was.
Wow! At the far side of the wall, there's a statue of some kind of god staring down at us intruders. The way it was lit by the lantern gave it a powerful appearance, and it scared me. That's the guardian god of Hinamizawa, Oyashiro-sama. I looked up at the statue, which was holding its religious ornament. If Satoshi-kun's disappearance really was a curse, I couldn't forgive this god. I found myself irritated by the way the statue looked down at me. Damn you, Oyashiro-sama. If you really made Satoshi-kun disappear, I'll never forgive you. Never! I believe part of the storage shed was reused for the torture dungeon. I'm not sure about this room. I think maybe there was a variant of it or something. Because there's not supposed to be an Oyashiro-sama statue in the torture room. Keiichi didn't seem to understand the significance of the storehouse. He looked bored. Takano-san noticed that and took out her scrapbooks to show him the brutal history of ancient Hinamizawa. I had heard that story already, so I decided to walk around by myself. Since I knew the significance of all these tools, I felt a little nauseated. Though they certainly wouldn't jump out to me, I still found them intimidating. They looked as if they were craving for fresh blood after not having been used in hundreds of years. Oh, the torture room is bluish, the other one was brown. This torture room is bluish, the other one's brown. I see. You found a gingerbread flavored Mountain Dew. Interesting. I've never even had regular Mountain Dew. Or any energy drink, actually, unless you count Lucozade. Which is more like Gatorade, where it's like a sports drink. Quote-unquote sports drink. I mean, we all know who is mostly consuming that, but... That they certainly wouldn't jump out... Oh, yeah. Okay. All the tools look similar to the ones I saw in the underground torture room at the Sonozaki main house. If those tools were the progenies of torture implements, these would be their ancestors. All the implements here looked old. I doubted they could really be used. They weren't kept maintained like the ones at the Sonozaki house. So did that mean they shouldn't scare me? No, on the contrary. They told me that cruel rituals were indeed performed in this village at one point. Now that I found scary. What Takano-san told me was the truth. When I stopped, Satoshi-kun also stopped behind me one step later. I felt no emotional change in Satoshi-kun. I couldn't tell if he was feeling something or not. I knew he was there, but I had no idea how he was feeling. Yep, that's what Keiichi looks like. He had been the point of view character in the first 3 chapters, obviously. And then in the 4th one, it was sort of a prequel where we were playing as a police guy and Keiichi didn't even show up. And then... yeah, Keiichi showed up for the first time on this stream. Not missing much of Mountain Dew, it used to be your life force before you learned of your family's violent history of diabetes. I see. I probably should not drink as much soda as I do, considering my own weight, but I'm trying to cut back. If he could answer me, I'd want to ask him, who demoned you away? Hey, Satoshi-kun, are you listening? Sounds like he's not the only cursed family around these parts called the Old Lombos. I couldn't tell if he heard me or not. He left as if he didn't hear anything. I could tell that he'd been sulky ever since we got here. I suddenly felt lonely, so I looked for him while walking around. I realized then that there was an altar in front of the statue. He might be there. It was a clean altar. An altar ornamented with religious artifacts. It was kept well maintained. I saw no dust. That would mean, well, the flowers in the vase weren't wilting. I saw a pretty handkerchief under the vase. It looked out of place amongst everything else. I eat ice cream all through the night. Yeah. I was fairly certain it was Rika Furude's handkerchief. That would mean that the storehouse is maintained daily. It wasn't a forgotten ruin buried in dust. You didn't even like Mountain Dew during your toxic aspartame phase as a child. I don't know what an aspartame is. It sounds familiar. Also, I would like to point out that this is the first... I believe it's one of the first major scenes we're getting where we have a direct point of reference between how Keiichi experienced it and how Shion did. Shion's here, like, musing to herself about Satoshi, and, she's not in a good mood, but she's doing, she's thinking to herself about stuff. Meanwhile, in the Watanagashi version of this, there was, like, ominous music playing, and Keiichi was freaking the fuck out about the story that he's being told, so it's funny to see the contrast.
Keiichi's over there having a fucking mental breakdown. I mean, to be fair, we're talking to the imagined presence of our missing boyfriend or love interest, so... yeah. It wasn't a forgotten ruin buried in dust, so the brutality that dwelled in this ritual storehouse is still alive and well in Hinamizawa. As pertains to the artificial Suina, I see. That's right. Something as ambiguous as Oyashiro-sama's curse is nothing more than a simple delusion of the villagers, as Takano-san said. Everything that happens in this world is done by humans. I'd accused Oyashiro-sama of demoning away Satoshi-kun, but Oyashiro-sama is just a statue made of bronze or wood. It's nothing but an icon. There are, however, human beings who would try to make that icon seem real. The series of mysterious deaths in Hinamizawa is the result of human action. It shouldn't be called Oyashiro-sama's curse. If Satoshi-kun was the fourth year's victim, then he was victimized by a human being who was just acting the part of a curse. The person who demoned away Satoshi-kun must not be very far from me. The truth behind Satoshi-kun's disappearance was not so far from my grasp. Thump. I was startled by the sound. It sounded like somebody had dropped something. I looked over at Takano-san and Keiichi. Takano-san was still lecturing him. Did she drop her scrapbook or something? I don't know if you can actually hear me thumping. Yeah, I think so. Okay. The sound came from right behind me, not from them. I'd never heard Satoshi-kun do that. It sounded like somebody was stomping on the floor in frustration. What is it? The sound continued, ignoring my question. Though I heard it right nearby, it sounded as though a child was hopping on a wooden floor somewhere distant. What's wrong, Satoshi-kun? Are you angry about something? I couldn't read his expressions. Harrison fell to the floor. What's going on? I thought he was mad, but I didn't sense any emotion from him at all. Was he mad that I touched the altar? Maybe you weren't supposed to do that. It's not that I've been able to communicate with Satoshi-kun in a concrete way. I just talked to him. I was never expecting him to react like that. I didn't sense a willingness to communicate from this creepy sound. Then a chill ran out my spine. I felt as if all my pores were opening. I'd been thinking that it was Satoshi-kun stomping on the floor. Hey, you. You're Satoshi-kun, aren't you? The sound stopped when I asked that. You was imagining what Keiichi looked like. You didn't picture him as a tank top kind of guy. They changed his design a little in the anime. It's sort of like a vest jacket, like a short jacket over like a black tank top, like a red vest jacket over a black tank top in the anime. That's what I'm more used to. I'm not quite used to the red tank top, but yeah. And then he has a different outfit for school. I don't know when we're going to see that, but this is like his casual outfit. Everyone in this game has a casual and school outfit. The sound stopped when I asked that. It wasn't a yes or a no, just silence. Oh, also, to be fair, it's like insanely hot in Hinamizawa, so... Satoshi-kun wouldn't scare me like that. I realized suddenly that the sound hadn't come from Satoshi-kun. A cold shiver shot through my feet, and I sprung a step backward. The sound had come from right there. Even though I jumped back, it was still just a few meters away. Satoshi-kun would sometimes let me hear his footsteps when I walked. But if that wasn't Satoshi-kun, then there was no guarantee I'd hear its footsteps. So that invisible being could already be right in front of my eyes. And I just wouldn't see it? I forgot everything and ran, straining my ears as much as possible for any sound, listening for any footsteps pursuing me. I ran right into Keiichi and clung to him, timidly turning back to look. The dimly lit area before the altar was quiet, like nothing was happening. But seeing that chilling dark stillness, realizing I was just in that space, made me even more frightened now. What's up, Shion? Did you get scared? Keiichi made fun of me. Even though he looked horrified just a little while ago, he now looked satisfied to see me scared too. I know girls tend to get freaked out by haunted houses. Well, I don't mind it. Anyway, let's go, before Takano-san leaves us behind. I pretended to be fine, but I wasn't sure if I was able to hide my fear entirely. The footsteps were chasing me. They were outside the illumination of the lantern, as if they couldn't go into the light. The presence never left us, however. It followed us like a fourth member of the party. Sometimes it made a stomping sound as if wanting some recognition, but neither Takano-san nor Keiichi seemed to notice it. It was possible for Takano-san to be ignoring it, but Keiichi would never ignore it,
If he could hear it, he would have said something. So just like with Satoshi-kun, only I could hear it. What was this thing that was making me so scared? Was it Satoshi-kun in a bad mood? Or was it possible that the presence I believed to be Satoshi-kun might not have been him at all? What are you upset about, Satoshi-kun? Tell me if I did something wrong. I'll apologize. If you aren't Satoshi-kun, then where did he go? When did you take his place? Shion, are you alright? Huh? I'm fine. You look pale, though. Keiichi did not hear it. in the Watanagashi arc, when we leave, like, I guess, this is kind of spoiling what's gonna come up, but it's something we've already experienced anyway. After we leave here, Shion's like, Keiichi, what was that weird thumping sound in there? And he's like, what thumping sound? And you're like, did you seriously not hear it? And he's like, what are you talking about? And she's just like, I got you, haha, and then she leaves. But no, apparently she did actually hear something. So and of course, this spooks Keiichi in the original. But yeah, no, Keiichi had no idea what she was talking about. And there wasn't any, like, thumping sound shown in from his point of view. Then I'd appreciate it if you didn't stretch my clothes too much. Oh, sorry. Oh. Am I interrupting you two? I decided to engage in the conversation to help myself ignore the sound from behind. I didn't hear the sound as much, and it became a bit more distant. Yeah, I shouldn't pay attention to it. It wouldn't bother me if I didn't hear it. I should just ignore the noise. Takano-san, you're researching whether those customs survived into the present. You are, right? What I'm about to tell you is a secret, alright? I told you, Shion-chan, because you're an understanding person, but the other villagers don't want to hear it. Pranked. If things go awry, I could be ganged up on and punished. She smiled at me like a witch. Maebara-kun, you keep it a secret too, okay? Test. My mic's still working. Can everyone else hear me? I'm gonna wait for a response. Okay. I see. Okay. Sorry about that. Hope you get that fixed. If this gets out, I could suffer Oyashiro-sama's curse or be made into a sacrifice. If it's the curse, then I wonder what kind of death it'll be this year. If it's the sacrifice, then will I be thrown into the Onigafuchi swamp while still alive? And it is tonight, you know. The night of Oyashiro-sama's curse. It certainly is. If the curse strikes for a 5th time, it'll happen tonight. Takano-san pulled out an old scrapbook from her paper bag and started turning the pages. She opened it to the page with that one article. It was the article about the brutal murder of a Watanagashi victim. It happened in the Meiji era. I see, painful. This is a story that actually happened. It was around the end of the Meiji era. They discovered an unknown mangled corpse, the victim of a murder in Onigafuchi village. Never before has there been a corpse treated with such cruelty and inhumanity. These thumping noises are hurting my legs to do. Hey, you guys seriously don't hear that? It's freaking loud. How can you not hear it? Ah, hell, it's freaking noisy. Cut it out already. And the next moment, we all heard a squeaking noise. We turned around in surprise. It was just Tomitake-san opening the door. Did I startle you? Oh, Jiro-san, could you not resist seeing inside? This is a splendid treasure trove of torture devices.
I'll pass on that. I'm bad with this sort of thing by nature. Takano-san laughed as if making fun of Tomitake-san for being such a scaredy cat. Takano, if only you knew how much he died because of this creepy obsession. You were unaware I was doing it with my legs. Well, yeah, it's like a thumping sound, like on the ground, right? I don't know. I guess I could have done it on the desk, but I thought that it would be too loud. In any case, the dance and ceremony are over, and everyone's going down to the river. The festival as a whole will be over within minutes. Immersion. Time was up. I had never expected that Tomitake-san would save me from this nightmare. His face suddenly looked heroic. Oh? Keiichi-kun, are you leaving too? I've seen enough. Shion, you're good too, right? Let's get out of here. I want some fresh air. I agree. Let's leave. I went into the entry room and turned around. Takano-san was taking photos in a mad rush, even though our time was up. I didn't hear that sound anymore. I didn't feel that presence. I didn't feel Satoshi-kun, either. But somehow I wasn't too sad about that. Even if he followed me out here, I wouldn't be able to tell if it was really him or somebody else. It's like you're really there and shitting yourself in fear. 500 says you won't sleep in that coffin back then. God. Oh boy, notebook page 172, 173, and 179. Achievement unlocked. Defilers. That underground torture room is officially called the Underground Ritual Storehouse. So, do torture room and ritual storehouse mean the same thing? According to Takano-san's theory, bloody rituals, including Watanagashi, have been passed down among the three families even after the Meiji era. The rituals are always ready to be performed. Their form of worship always revolved around torture, so Hinamizawa's history involved a great deal of human slaughter. Takano-san's theory is correct. The underground storehouse at the Sonozaki house looked well maintained. Takano-san is right about that, too. Since the Sonozaki family and the Furude family both have ritual storehouses, the Kimiyoshi family must have one too. After all, these ancient and brutal customs are still handed down through the generations. I should remain armed with the knowledge that occult events are still secretly being performed in this cursed village. The sanctity of the ritual storehouse is one of the most prominent elements in the worship of Oyashiro-sama. Regional dialects. Of course, I knew that, since I'm originally from Hinamizawa, but violating that sanctity is actually a more serious problem than I thought. Takano-san's research shows that the history of the ritual storehouse goes way back. The ritual implements within have long been viewed as inviolable objects, which is why it was strictly forbidden to enter. Takano-san's theory says that Watanagashi was once a public execution, performed to stabilize the reign of the three families, rather than a purely religious ritual. If so, the ritual should hardly be called sacred. Under those circumstances, the implements should have been despised as symbols of hatred and fear. When instruments of fear are too visible, it only creates a reign of terror. But keep them as hidden as possible, and they gain divinity. Many said they would become tainted if the layman touched them. You forgot about the steamed hand things you wanted to do? I'd be interested in seeing that. The only reason for that was to preserve their false prestige through secrecy, since they would lose their sanctity if revealed before the common folk. In other words, the true identity of the ritual storehouse's sacredness was fear. That was the true emotion ruling over this village. The reason why Takano-san and Tomitake-san were cursed is because they broke into the ritual storehouse. I don't know how the villagers found out about it. Maybe somebody was watching. Maybe there was an anti-theft alarm. Either way, our intrusion must have been reported to the highest level of the curse system. That's because, considering the distance between the village and the site where Takano-san's body was found, she must have been killed right after we came out of the ritual storehouse. It was done very quickly. It's possible that a special assassination team exists for this purpose, or that the plan had been set up a long time ago.
They might have been secret agents of the Sonozaki family, but the latter sounds more valid. But if so, who would have been the victim if nobody broke into the ritual storehouse? I'm glad they're not repeating everything that happened when Shion was on screen, because I feel like that would get really old. I'm glad that they're mostly sticking to showing us new perspectives. My relatives gathered at the Sonozaki house after the festival to have a little party. Oh, I forgot to save. Oops. There. I don't know, I was watching Chikoda noise by disguising now. How? I mingled with my uncles and had fun. I was trying to get rid of my eerie memories of the ritual storehouse. If you put in your PIN number backwards, it'll call the cops. I think I have seen that fake Tumblr post as well. God. Mion was acting as the successor, so I tried to stay away from her. I'm sure she would feel weird if I talked to her in a formal way. In consideration of the hag's old age, we ended the party around 11 p.m. We all helped to clean up, with the women washing the dishes in the kitchen, and the men folding the tables and putting them away in a storeroom. It only took about 30 minutes, then everyone left, one after another. By then, Mion was no longer acting as the Sonozaki successor, and was back to being her normal self. Or her normal slef, if you prefer. Maybe I overexerted a little. I was lying on the tatami floor. Kasai asked me if I could get in the car, so I told him I'd rather not move anymore. Sis, can I spend the night here? I just want to sleep. Granny will get mad if she finds you. By the way, don't you have school tomorrow, Shion? No, tomorrow's our school's anniversary, so there's no class. How many times a year does your school have its anniversary? Oh, well. Okay, Kasai-san. She can stay here tonight. Understood. Good night. Come on, Shion, wake up. Granny will get really mad if you fall asleep here. Here, hold on to me. You can sleep in my room. You what? Sis? My alter ego told me that I'm in a demon's stomach. I wouldn't have woken up if I hadn't heard that voice. But when I stop, he always walks one extra step. I might not have woken up at all. You want to say this before, but this Kasai does not look like he belongs alongside these other characters. I kind of get what you mean. The style is a little different. This is a mod, it's worth remembering. I don't know if... it's possible that they're mostly using one... Because there's like... God, there's like 4 different sets of sprites for these characters. There's the original ones, which are kind of ugly looking, but they're done by the original author. There's the Steam ones, which are hideous in their own right, for different reasons. And then there's 2 different console ones, and this mod, 7th expansion, uses... Also, no, actually I think it's called 7th mod. 7th expansion is the company. 7th mod uses one of the console arcs, but it's possible that, like, Kasai didn't even have a sprite in one of those, and maybe they had to take it from a different... from one of the other. There's like 2 slightly different sets of console sprites. That might be the discrepancy. I'm not sure. It could also just be something else, but yeah. I didn't remember much after that. I was probably brought to Mion's room and immediately crawled into the futon. After a while, Mion got her futon ready next to me, turned the lights off, and went to sleep. At least that's what I'd thought. I got up and turned the lights on. Mion's futon was empty. The futon felt cold. Mion must have left it a while ago. Did she go to the bathroom? No, the closest bathroom was right there down the hallway. The light in the bathroom was off. Where did she go? The ticking of the clock was loud and annoying in this silence. The hands pointed to a little before 3 a.m. I was left alone all of a sudden in this late night. I felt the eeriness of the ritual storehouse coming back to me, after almost managing to forget it in the ruckus earlier. I tried to sense my surroundings. In this house, there shouldn't be an eerie atmosphere, strange noises, or footsteps. I stepped out into the freezing cold hallway to look for Mion. When I did, I immediately noticed light coming from one of the nearby rooms. That room belonged to the hag. The hag went to sleep early and woke up early. She was very strict about her bedtime, so it was strange to see her light on in the middle of the night. I could hear voices, too. Those voices belonged to the hag and Mion. I creeped up to the room and listened to their conversation. Since it was the middle of the night, I could hear their words very clearly. But you know, those young ones went too far. You're right. They made Oyashiro-sama angry, so I guess they got what they deserved. Mion's voice sounded as cold as the one I'd heard down in the torture room. I held my breath. The police say they're investigating, but are you sure? I guess. Who wants an anime girl's demonic presence at 3 in the morning? Oh boy, 3 a.m. It's probably Takano-san. My heart almost stopped. Oyashiro-sama got angry. The police are investigating. It's probably Takano-san. And what day was it today? Those words told me that something was happening. My teeth started to chatter. I desperately tried to stop them. About my trouble with the hag, goddammit. I felt like my body was swelling up suddenly. Are we unstoppable? I could no longer hear as well. Calm down. Breathe. Listen more carefully. According to Mion and the hag's conversation, another incident definitely took place. The victims were Takano-san and Tomitake-san. From what I could tell, both Mion and the hag thought it made sense that whatever it was happened to them. No. I needed to think more calmly. They did say they deserved it for making Oyashiro-sama angry. Did they say Takano-san and Tomitake-san made Oyashiro-sama angry? How did I make Oyashiro-sama angry? They knew. My body started to shake. They knew we snuck into the ritual storehouse. Then would that mean Keiichi and I were also subject to Oyashiro-sama's curse? Suddenly a phone rang. The phone was by the front door. The front door was opposite the hag's room, farther down the hall. The ringing echoed throughout the long hallway. It sounded so eerie, almost like it was coming from hell. That was when I felt someone behind me. Of course, there was nobody there when I turned around, but there was someone there a moment ago. I didn't know if it was Satoshi-kun. I didn't sense any emotion, so I couldn't tell. I also didn't know how long it had been there. It was as if that somebody was watching me listen in on their conversation. That was the feeling I got. It couldn't be Satoshi-kun. Satoshi-kun would never be that intimidating or scary. My mind turned all red like it was suffused with blood. Have you experienced anything like that? Those footsteps always followed me. They even came to my bedside and looked down at me. I remembered what Ryugu had said on that rainy day. You'll be okay, if that's true. Oyashiro-sama won't get mad at you. If Oyashiro-sama wasn't angry, nobody would follow me. So what did this mean? Ever since we snuck into the shrine storage, something has been following me? What is it? Calm down! That's right, Harana wasn't talking about me. She was talking about Satoshi-kun. That's what happened to Satoshi-kun. Everything he's going through is a sign of Oyashiro-sama's curse. That's right. That's why he encountered the curse of Oyashiro-sama. Yep, these are the clouds you mentioned. You feel someone is watching from a distance, and it follows you. A creepy feeling crawled up and spread across my back. Then it watches from right behind you. After that, you start hearing an extra footstep. Pardon me? I swallowed loudly. It's almost as though Ryugu was predicting what would happen to me. Had Rana been talking about Satoshi-kun back then? Or had she actually been talking about me? But you start hearing it even inside your house after a while. Then, Oyashiro-sama keeps watching you even when you're sleeping in the dark. Right by your side, waiting silently. I knew by now that there was no mistake. No matter how I looked at it, she had been talking about me. Yes, me. It had been about me. The curse of Oyashiro-sama. What is the curse of Oyashiro-sama? That was when I actually felt something for real. Someone grabbed my collar. No voice came out. I wanted to scream, but all I could do was to open and close my mouth as if something was stuck in my throat.
It was Mion. She looked even colder than how she'd looked in the underground torture room. It only made sense that she'd come out into the hallway to answer the phone. I tried to come up with an excuse. However, the way Mion looked at me was so cold. Even if I really had run into her by accident, I could tell by the look in her eyes that she wouldn't believe me. I felt cold sweat all over my body. I couldn't even move my fingers. Sorry. I apologized. I could have said something to get myself out of the situation, but the apology came out first. But Mion didn't appear to hear me. She walked to the front door, still holding my collar. The phone was still ringing. A normal person doesn't usually let a phone ring so long at this time of night. The phone call itself didn't seem real to me. Mion picked up the phone. This is Mion. I see. I understand. Please take care of things at your end. I jump-scared you with a gasp, I'm sorry. Also, please make sure that nobody talks about this. Yes. Goodbye. Mion put down the phone after a short conversation. What did she mean, make sure nobody talks about this? Who called anyway? Mion put her forehead to mine and spoke to me. Did you hear? Which conversation was she asking me about? Well, she had to be talking about the one with the hag. If I said yes, what would happen to me? I don't know what you're talking about. Mion pulled my collar, pressed her nose on mine, and continued to speak. Just what you heard. The curse of Oyashiro-sama fell upon Tomitake-san and Takano-san. It's really very unfortunate. It was like I was talking to myself in a mirror, but what I was saying in the mirror was ever so cold. Sis, what is the curse of Oyashiro-sama? Tomitake-san killed himself by clawing out his throat. Takano-san was burned to death in an oil drum. Terrible, isn't it? Tomitake-san clawed at his own throat until he died? What? Takano-san was burned to death in an oil drum? What? What? I felt something furry crawl up my spine. I also felt like my stomach was turning upside down. I didn't feel any strength in my legs. If Mion let go of my collar, I'd probably collapse on the spot. Why did they die that way? Don't you know, Shion? I'm asking you because I don't know. I don't know. Don't you see there can be only one reason? Please don't talk as if I already know the answer. What do you mean? My heart was pounding. I felt that my next breath would be so bloody and hot that I'd choke on it. Don't you know? It's because they made Oyashiro-sama angry. The first year, it was the manager of the damn construction site. The second year, it was the traitors to the village. The third year, it was the pacifist. The fourth year, it was the relatives of the traitors. God damn it, guys. Well, I guess just Serena. I'd always thought the victims were people who had something to do with the dam conflict. Since I didn't do anything against the village during the dam conflict, I assumed I was safe. I should have known. I should have known everything would be the curse of Oyashiro-sama. I knew Oyashiro-sama's anger was the curse of Oyashiro-sama. I knew Oyashiro-sama would get angry if I snuck into the ritual storehouse. But since I wasn't held responsible in any way for the dam conflict, I never thought I would be a victim of the curse. Did I ever think there would be an incident in the 5th year? Did I ever think that I'd be the victim of that 5th year incident? Tomitake-san snuck into the storehouse, and he clawed at his own throat until he died. Takano-san was burned to death in an oil drum. It must be a lie. It couldn't be true. Even if it was forbidden, it was just a space for storing some old torture implements. How could they be killed for just sneaking in there? Especially in such gruesome ways. But I thought about it again and realized that those people were absolutely capable of doing things like that. The main Sonozaki family was capable of it. Are you keeping count of the CGs? I'm totally using that as a thumbnail. I always hope that a unique CG is going to come up in one of these so I can use it as a thumbnail. Sometimes I have to make do with a screenshot or just one of the backgrounds. Anyway. You're all getting soup? Understandable. The Sonozaki family had been pulling the strings behind the series of mysterious deaths. They could do it. The Sonozaki family even kidnapped the grandson of the Minister of Construction during the dam conflict. They could do it. The Sonozaki family made Satoshi-kun disappear completely. They could do it. God damn it, Daisy. Mio leaned against me before falling onto the cold hallway floor. She collapsed rather violently. I usually didn't go to sleep with my stun gun, but since I was too tired and sleepy to get ready for bed, I still had it on me. I had my stun gun on me. I finally understood. I didn't know who killed them exactly, whose idea it was, or who ordered it. I didn't even know who was actually involved. But Mion and the hag knew everything. Satoshi-kun, now I finally know. Now I know what I need to do. I will settle the score for you, Satoshi-kun. I will avenge you, Satoshi-kun. I won't be killed like you, Satoshi-kun. I walked into the hag's room. She was sitting up to take some medicine. Her back was turned to me. Mion and I are twins. If I acted like her, the hag wouldn't notice the difference. I didn't think she ever suspected me. I put my stun gun to her neck and pulled the trigger. I heard an indescribable electrical sound, and the hag's lights went out. She fell in a twisted position. I didn't know how long it would take a person to regain their freedom of movement after getting knocked out with a stun gun. So I had to restrain them before they woke back up. I was unbelievably calm. The key to the underground torture room was in the forbidden drawer that only the head of the family can access. Mion had told me about this once. I'd never looked for the drawer before, but I found it exactly where I thought it would be. The key was on a keychain with several of its sisters. Each key had a little plaque on it that said what it was used for. They were all in Mion's handwriting. She was an idiot for being so conscientious, but it sure helped me out. I put the keychain into my pocket and headed to the outdoor storeroom to find a cart. I just realized this is kind of a parallel to her trying to sneak out of the school, and she finds the keys and she's like fumbling with them and she's scared. And now she's unbelievably calm. She's got the fucking labels on the keys. Interesting. This is the kind of stuff you miss out on if you just watch the anime. Because that one opens with like a 5-second shot of her jumping the gate. But anyway. I put the keychain in my pocket and headed to the outdoor storeroom to find a cart. I found a large flashlight there as well. There was a strap on the flashlight so I could put it on my shoulder. That way I'd have both hands free to carry Mion and the hag. I loaded Mion and then our grandmother onto the cart and carried them to the underground torture room. I was prepared to use the stun gun again if they woke up while I was working. But it was more powerful than I imagined, and the hag showed no signs of waking. This was the stun gun Kasai specially ordered for me when I told him I wanted a powerful one. I remembered him telling me that it was an illegally modified stun gun and that I should never use it just for fun. I used my flashlight to find the light switch. I found it easily and turned it on. All the lights went on in the basement. Although there was now illumination, it was very dim. I moved quickly so as to finish what I needed to do before they woke up. I decided to put Mion in a cell beyond the torture room. The lights in the torture room were so bright that it was like daylight. By now she's experiencing breaking and entering either inside or outside. The lights... Yeah, I read that. There was a door there. I was fairly certain the cells were on the other side of that door. The proper key was here. The keys made a tinkling sound. I felt cold air coming in through the gap in the door. There must be a huge opening on the other side. I opened the door and I saw nothing but darkness. I felt along the wall to find a light switch. I turned the switch on, and the light bulbs lit up, revealing a huge rocky cave. It didn't look like a natural cave. It looked more like an air raid shelter. There were several hollow openings with bars across them. Those were the cells. I walked up to the closest cell and checked to see if it was strong enough to confine her. I pushed and pulled on the bars. I rammed against them with all my weight and decided they were perfectly sturdy. This was secure enough to be called a cell. I opened the lock and carried Mion in. I wasn't particularly strong, just average. I never thought I was strong enough to carry a whole person. But now I didn't need to pretend to be weak. I could easily lift and drag their bodies. I put Mion in the cell. Yeah, if you use a stun gun on yourself, then you won't be able to let go of the button, and you'll stay locked in that position until someone removes it or the batteries run dry, like you said. She seemed to moan a little.
I didn't need to check to make sure. The effect of my stun gun was wearing off. I closed the bars and turned the key in the lock. Then I ran to the hag, who must have been starting to wake up too. Fortunately, there was no sign of her regaining consciousness. Maybe the difference in age had something to do with it. I looked for a table to restrain her on. I found a wheelchair with restraints for the hands and feet. I put the hag on it. Some caves could be used as airtight shelters the deeper you go. That's a fact used to scare the kids to shut up. Good shit. Of course she didn't resist, but her dead weight made it seem like she was a huge French doll, but one made of flesh. I put her hands on the armrests and restrained them at the wrists with the metal rings and hinges. I did the same with her feet. This must have been a wheelchair specially remodeled to restrain a person. Other than the restraints, it was a regular wheelchair. I waited for the hag to wake up. I had so many things I wanted to ask her. I didn't think she'd answer honestly, but I had plenty of tools to make her talk. I was in no rush. When the hag had a concern, relatives took care of the problem. That was how it worked in the Sonozaki family. She was the leader of the family, so all the information they gathered would make its way to her. She must know everything that happened in Hinamizawa, including the curse of Oyashiro-sama. I heard a noise from the cell. Mio must have woken up before the hag did. Speaking of the hag, she didn't seem like she was about to wake up anytime soon, but she was restrained even if she did, so I had no need to fear. I left the hag there and headed for the cell. Shion, what do you think you're doing? She talked like the successor, but she also sounded frightened. She obviously understood the situation she was in right now. Good morning, Mio. You never thought you'd be in there, huh? As the acting head, I order you, open this up. You don't sound so scary in there. You need to talk more like a leader, don't you think? Though, talking that way will only make you look like a fool. There was nothing funny about it, but I wanted to intimidate Mion. Okay, we went to the torture dungeon. We found the keys to everything there. We have restrained the hag in a wheelchair specially designed for restraining people, and we put Mion in a cell, and now we are intimidating and trying to interrogate her. My laughter echoed throughout the cave. It was artificial and meaningless laughter. I heard it over and over as it echoed. It sounded as if I wasn't the only one laughing. I couldn't stand it, so I stopped. Silence filled the air. That silence almost hurt my ears, so I started to speak. Tomitake-san and Takano-san becoming the victims this year. I didn't expect that. What an idea to burn Takano-san to death. But actually, she would be the kind of person who'd prefer to die that way. Maybe she's satisfied, huh? Mion didn't say anything. She just stared at me to see how I'd proceed. What about the way Tomitake-san died? He clawed out his own throat, right? Did you give him a shot of some kind? Or is there a torture device that did that to him? Mion didn't reply. I was smiling boldly, but I became impatient and finally kicked the bars. It made a violent noise. Mion jumped as if she was kicked directly. It's boring not to get any answers. Do you have any idea what will happen if I get angry? How would I know? Mion finally replied. She was odious, but at the same time sounded pitiful. Hey, Mion, as a successor, why don't you tell me? Let's see. I had just too many things I wanted to ask her. I wanted to ask her about me, about the incident, about the curse, about Satoshi-kun. I didn't even know where to start. Before I asked her about those, I asked her one other thing. You know there's no point in trying to resist, don't you? Mion glared at me silently. Because we were twins, I knew that was just a bluff. We've come this far, so there's no point in me hesitating anymore. You shouldn't expect hesitation or even mercy from me, sis. Mio must have been feeling the cold sweat on her face. Although the light was dim, I could tell she was frightened. Okay, here I go. First, about the series of mysterious deaths in Hinamizawa, also known as the curse of Oyashiro-sama. What's the meaning of it? Is it to signify the end of the dam conflict? I think so. Mion sounded a little confused, but she answered. I felt satisfaction now that we were communicating. I continued with a smile. You think, huh? Don't you know the details? You know yourself that the successor is simply a messenger for Granny. Yeah, right. Oh, maybe, yeah, right. But the successor must know everything the current head is thinking, right? Do you really think I believe you're just a messenger? Although I'm always around Granny, I don't always know what she's thinking. It's not like I can understand her all the time. Okay, so you're saying that everything about the curse of Oyashiro-sama is decided by the hag herself, right? I assume she talked to the successor about it. When it's something dangerous, Granny decides it on her own. I don't have anything to do with it. But even if she decides by herself, Grandma uses you to take care of various things, doesn't she? And you're telling me you don't know anything? No! She doesn't use me for that. I really don't understand it myself, but it's like I take care of problems on the surface, and someone else takes care of problems on the underside. Who? Who is the one that takes care of these underside problems? I don't know. Haven't you seen anyone? Haven't you overheard a phone conversation? Senility, am I right? God. It must be someone who gets in touch with the hag at the same time every year around the time when the curse happens. I don't know. I really don't. Mion shook her head. Okay, let me change the question. Why were Tomitake-san and Takano-san chosen as victims even though they had nothing to do with the damn conflict? Was it because they snuck into the ritual storehouse? As soon as Mion heard the words ritual storehouse, her expression shifted. The ritual storehouse? Did they intrude on the storehouse at the Furude shrine? Didn't you know? I thought you already knew. If they really did that, then it was truly stupid of them. Of course something would happen to them. Mion muttered bitterly while shaking her head repeatedly. Mion's reaction made me realize the true meaning of the forbidden storehouse for ritual implements. The ritual storehouse is a sacred building, so nobody can go inside. The curse will fall upon any who disobey. Any child would know that rule. However, just because they knew about it didn't mean that they all believed in it. Although they were told they would be cursed, most of the kids actually enjoyed hearing the stories. They simply didn't believe it was true. However, Mion's reaction told me it absolutely was. If they actually did that, of course something would happen to them. She was saying that if someone snuck into the ritual storehouse, that person should be killed. What you know and what I know aren't matching up anymore. Of course I'm aware I shouldn't just waltz into the storehouse. But to be killed in such a gruesome way for doing it? I never knew that. Did you? That's just because you're ignorant about it, Shion. Well, sorry for being ignorant. Could you please explain it to me? Just like you said, the kids don't really believe in the curse. They assume it's just superstition, but they also know that if an adult found out, they'd be in big trouble. But to the elderly people of Hinamizawa, it's something more serious. Mion explained to me how the elderly people blindly believe in Oyashiro-sama and how sacred the festivals are to them. It's probably something the younger generations would never understand, but they're possessed by a very strong, deeply rooted devotion towards Oyashiro-sama. Mion then went on to tell me about how sinful it was to violate the rule of the ritual storehouse. I just couldn't believe things like that were still going on, even in the modern day. I couldn't even reply appropriately. But even if it was unbelievable, I couldn't ignore what I was hearing from my twin sister. I see. But Mion, doesn't the rule say that one victim gets killed by the curse and another has to become a sacrifice? The body of the sacrifice is never to be found. But there are 2 dead bodies this time. What do you think of that? Mion doesn't know that beside Takano-san and Tomitake-san, Keiichi and I also snuck into the ritual storehouse, so I tried to lead her a little. I know that doesn't make sense. Maybe Takano-san's burnt body wasn't supposed to be found. Maybe the intention was for her to vanish. Or... I'm not too sure, but... What? Just say what you're thinking, I won't get mad. God, my throat. Oh my god. It doesn't hurt, but it's like, it's really scratchy, and... So, when I'm doing the voices of the Sonozaki twins,
I usually differentiate them with a rasp. So I try to have Shion sort of... I can't demonstrate it, but she has like a softer voice that I do without like a rasp. And then with Mion, I try to lean into the rasp a little more like that. But it's harder to tell because I've got a rasp in fucking everything. God, I hate my throat sometimes. It was doing fine earlier. I think it was because I had hot chocolate. I'm tempted to make another one, but I don't really want to leave the stream for that, so... What? Just say what you're thinking. I won't get mad. Mion hesitated a little first and then started to speak. Actually, 4 people snuck into the shrine storage. So, maybe... Maybe what? Maybe the other 2 will become the sacrifices and get demoned away. Tomitake hates his throat too, goddammit. Mion's words were stuck in my head. If those 2 dead bodies were the result of the curse, then there should be 2 sacrifices to calm Oyashiro-sama's anger. The 4 of us snuck into the shrine storage together. It was a simple equation. Did that mean that Keiichi and I were in danger? I got drunk, fell asleep, and decided to stay overnight. Was that because of the alcohol, or did someone put a drug in my drink? It's not like me to get drunk and spend a night at the hag's house. I wanted to forget about what happened in that eerie storehouse, so I drank too much. But it really was strange for me to get that drunk. Maybe it was a good thing I woke up in the middle of the night. I could have been the one to wake up in a cell. Sometimes it's hard to recognize danger when you avoid it accidentally. A part of me wanted to just laugh at the idea, but another part felt frightened that I was so close to being in Mion's position. If my thinking was correct, I wonder how Keiichi Maebara was doing right now. I didn't see him in any of the cells, but that didn't guarantee his safety. Takano-san and Tomitake-san had been executed. There was a possibility that Keiichi could already be dead. But just like what happened to Satoshi-kun, it might only happen after a few days. When the sun rose, I was going to pretend to be Mion and head to her school. I was going to check if Keiichi Maebara was safe. If he had already disappeared, the enemy would come after me next. I'd have to be a decoy for myself. But if he was still safe, I'd need to keep my eyes on him. I was sure the enemy would come after that scatterbrain. If I became Mion, Shion would disappear. The enemy would think Shion had already been demoned away, and they'd concentrate on Keiichi. If nothing happened to Keiichi, that would also be fine. It'd prove that nothing would happen to me either. The hag was still sleeping in the wheelchair. I was going to interrogate her, but actually I wasn't expecting to learn that much. The woman who was also known as Empress Sonozaki probably wouldn't say a thing even if her fingers were cut off. Mion, her successor, was the complete opposite. She spoke readily, but didn't know too much about anything. Mion had said she was only a messenger, and that someone else was taking care of problems on the underside. It was possible Mion had grown to be a good liar, and that she just tried to deceive me with a straight face. But at the same time, I could see the hag not letting Mion get involved in the underside of the village. If I were her, I wouldn't have used Mion for that either. Unlike me, Mion was a nice person. While there are only ones and zeros in the world, she believed there were numbers with decimal points. In other words, she could never be cruel. If the hag thought the same way as I do, it was very possible. The one who took care of problems on the underside, X, was the one who actually governed the curse of Oyashiro-sama. If the hag became concerned about something, X would deal with it, either directly or indirectly. Or maybe the hag and X would discuss the details first. But did X really exist? If he did, his place in the village hierarchy was a lot more important than that of the successor. Unlike Mion, who was too nice, he was discreet, cruel, and cunning. Furthermore, he was extremely close to the hag, someone who would have a lot of contact with her just before it was time for the curse. Because of the way Tomitake-san died, it could be someone who regularly dealt with unusual drugs. He could be a member of a medical institution. The director of the Yaaaaay clinic. Yaaaaay? In this isolated village, Yaaaaay was famous for opening such a beautiful clinic and for working so hard for the villagers' sake. The villagers liked his mature personality and really respected him. There's nothing scarier than a doctor who's also a murderer. If Yaaaaay was the person behind the curse, all the mysterious deaths could be explained. However, there was only a slim chance of Yaaaaay being X. The main reason being that the hag wouldn't trust him. I believe the most prolific serial killer of all time was a British doctor who just kind of, like, he had like a private clinic with a bunch of mostly elderly patients, and I think he just kind of killed them with like lethal injections and claimed that, you know, they had died of old age or some shit or illness or whatever. He killed like fucking 60 of them. Look him up if you're interested in that kind of stuff, I guess, but it's a pretty depressing and gruesome tale. Like many of the elderly... Honestly, he looks like he could do it. Like many of the elderly, the hag doesn't like young people. I knew she'd never trust him because of his age. Furthermore, she had openly criticized his behavior among the relatives once. Although Yaaaaay was famous, he was an outsider after all. He wasn't born here. He tried to maintain a good relationship with the villagers as the director of the clinic, but that was just on the surface. I couldn't even imagine the hag telling him about her worries or about the village's underside. If she was as suspicious of others as I was, then she'd only gather trustworthy people to deal with that underside. Mickey Mouse lethal injection, God. The first people that came to my mind were the leaders of the three families. Leaving Rika-chama out, the head of the Kimiyoshi family was a strong possibility. He was the only one who could advise Empress Sonozaki. They were of a similar age, and everyone knew that they were very close outside the family councils. Furthermore, as the mayor, he often went to the Sonozaki house just before Watanagashi to discuss festival preparations. You believe Yaaaaay is in on it because weren't there some lab boyos trying to Shrek down Keiichi's door at the end of the first chapter? He killed 250 people?! Oh my god, my memory was, like... What's the opposite of exaggerating? Fucking lowballing. Holy fuck! Jesus Christ. Anyway, yeah, okay. Anyway, sorry, Sketch's question. I can't remember what we know about the people that were trying to get Keiichi at the end of the first chapter, to be honest. But I will say that Mion and Rena were like, yeah, we've called the director, or something. And that was part of what freaked Keiichi out. 250, fuck. Pardon me. I could easily picture them talking privately. The one who executed the curse of Oyashiro-sama. The one who murdered Takano-san and Tomitake-san. Harold Frederick Shipman. I see. Grossly underestimating? Yeah. The mastermind behind the series of the mysterious deaths that have been going for the past 5 years. Was he coming after me? Did he get to Satoshi-kun? When I thought about Satoshi-kun, I felt elevated. I was fearful of possibly being this year's victim until just a moment ago. I was scared that X was after me, but when I thought about it, I realized. Whoever it was, this person had gotten Satoshi-kun. I'd looked so hard, but I couldn't find him. I'd almost forgotten about this enemy. For better or for worse, he was going to appear before me again. You could have sworn Keiichi said something about seeing a guy in a white coat, so he had a TF2 thought doctor. He might have, I'm not sure. It might be worth going back and looking at the scene, if you're curious. I, of course, already know pretty much everything about the series, so I know whether or not you're correct, but in terms of looking at this from the perspective of a blind playthrough, I can't remember what was established. It is good to try to keep in mind stuff like that and compare it, though, I will say that much. Use later information combined with earlier information to remember stuff. But now he was trying to find me. That was it. I wasn't only being chased, I was chasing too. When I realized all this, I was no longer afraid of dying to the 5th year's curse. It had become a game. I wasn't only being threatened, I was threatening too. Now was the time to settle the score for Satoshi-kun. Now was the time to awaken passions that had grown weak over the past year. I could feel righteous indignation and courage flare up within me. The only emotion that can defeat fear is anger. When my anger completely overtook my fear, I felt as if I were reborn. Why didn't you wake up, Grandma? You gonna be a DM soon, you gotta have these skills? Oh, nice. Is that a standard like D&D campaign, or is it some other tabletop system? I guess if you're saying DM, it's probably D&D. I've been running a D&D campaign for a few years now. Very on and off recently, unfortunately, just because I haven't really had the motivation. It's a shame because I'm near the end of the story, but yeah, it's pretty fun. Stressful at times. I don't know. It kind of depends on your group a lot as well. Hopefully you have fun with it. I kicked her wheelchair rather violently. But that didn't wake her up either. Are you just pretending to be asleep? I grabbed her hair and pulled her head up. But even then, the hag still stayed silent with a straight face. Then I noticed something. I looked for an appropriate torture device. They were all large scale, none of them being particularly handy. Homebrewish DM very lax, I see. That's when I saw a cigarette lighter on a cushion in the tatami room. One of the relatives must have left it there. I lit the lighter. A huge flame appeared. I turned the lighter off and went back to the hag with it. Can you see it? Can't you see it? This is a cigarette lighter somebody left behind. Anger beats sadness, happy beats anger, sadness beats happy, fear has no strengths or weaknesses to any other emotion. Is that Omori? I haven't played that game, but I know that emotions are status conditions. I lit it in front of her eyes. I'm gonna burn your nose now. You don't want that, do you? I wouldn't want it. So why don't you quit pretending to be asleep? There was still no response. I put the flame right under her nose without hesitation. The tip of the flame touched the tip of her nose. The flame must have burned her nose hair. It smelled terrible. I was already certain, but I continued anyway. I brought the flame closer to her eye. Her eyelid didn't move one bit. The flame burned her eyelashes, making it smell awful again. I turned the lighter off and then felt her throat and wrist. I didn't feel any warmth. I didn't feel a pulse either. Did she die from the stun gun? There was no way she could pretend to be asleep while being burned. Even if she could endure the pain, anyone would reflexively move their eyelids if a flame came close to their eyes. But she didn't. I turned the sink water on and aimed the end of a hose at the hag's face. The water pressure wasn't too high, but by squeezing the tip of the hose, I could make it squirt out. The water hit the hag in the face, but there was still no reaction. Shit! You've got to be kidding me! She's dead! The one who was at the center of everything is dead now! I knew she wouldn't talk, but I didn't expect her to end up dead. I never even thought of killing her. I walked around the room restlessly. I didn't feel guilty, but instead felt frustrated with what I'd done. Come on, I need to calm down. What do I need to be afraid of? Calm down and stay cool. Calm down, stay cool. I could feel my brain starting to calm down and my emotions cooling down with it. She was my true enemy. It was just that I killed her before confronting her about it. Sooner or later, I would have killed her anyway. She wouldn't have said anything in the first place, so there wasn't really a reason why I should have let her live. I didn't realize that until now, and that was why I got frustrated. My revenge for Satoshi-kun started with the unexpected death of my grandmother. It was such a strange feeling, like I was wearing sopping wet clothes. I replaced that feeling with anger. I couldn't forgive her. I couldn't forgive the hag for abusing the Hojo family, including Satoshi-kun, for so many years. She cornered him psychologically as well as physically. So I tell you, she slowed her heart rate and pulled some ninjutsu shit just to pretend to be dead. God. She didn't deserve an easy death from a stun gun. I picked up a whip that was hanging on the wall. The whip was designed to make sure the person on the receiving end got seriously injured. I swung it up and then down. The sound reminded me of when I was a child hitting things with a jump rope I pretended was a whip. But unlike then, I had made a purple mark on the hag's face, and reddish-black blood started oozing out. I swung it up and then down again. This time the whip hits her in the head. Her hair flew in the air. I saw a bunch of her hair on the tip of the whip. At the end of the bunch of hair, there was a piece of her skin. Seeing the whip had ripped part of her scalp off, I continued to hit her with the whip. I didn't bother removing the hair beforehand. The tip of the whip was divided into many points, with each point having a fishhook on the end. Those hooks, added to the speed of the whip, not only scratched the victim, but tore their skin as well. The hag's hair was all messed up and her face was getting bloody. She started to look like a real demon. I stopped the whipping. Not because my arm was tired, but because I couldn't stand the feeling of her hair on the tip touching me every time I swung the whip. I threw the whip at the hag. Breathing heavily, I realized I was covered in her hair. It almost felt like thousands of maggots crawling all over me. I brushed it off violently. You deserve this, you fucking demon hag! I put my hands on my knees and exhaled roughly. It was then that I noticed it. I perked up and turned around. There it is. The person who had been watching me since I snuck into the shrine storage. I sensed this person sitting in the tatami room. It enjoyed watching me torture my grandmother. Then I decided to throw her in a paper shredder. No response. An overwhelming emotion started to swallow me up. I tried desperately not to feel it. How long have you been there? You should have said something. It was just there. Just like Satoshi-kun, it was just there. It was extremely uncomfortable to have it just be there. I see. Rena told me. Are you Oyashiro-sama? I smiled boldly, and yet I could feel my body shivering. You can't fool me. Are you saying that you're Oyashiro-sama and that the curse of Oyashiro-sama really does exist? Come on! Who would believe something like that? Huh? It was just my imagination. It couldn't be the curse of Oyashiro-sama. The curse couldn't be real. Everything was done by humans. They made everything look like it was a curse. Well, I don't care if you saw what I did. I won't charge you for it. But if you're thinking about interfering, I won't hold back, you know. No matter what I said, nothing happened. It was like trying to communicate with an insect. I felt like I was staring at a spider in the middle of its web, and the spider was staring back. I turned to the hag in the wheelchair. I couldn't leave her body here forever. If I don't need to make her death known, then it should be quick, and it's best if a body doesn't exist. Not even in this secret underground torture room. Whew. I exhaled to try and calm myself down. Oh, I remember now. When I was a little girl, Kasa used to love making me feel scared. He often told me scary stories about various horrible things. I recalled his story about the secret torture room of the Sonozaki family. According to the story, there was a well in the torture room for dumping bodies in. There was a pile of tortured corpses at the bottom of the well, and resentful moans could be heard echoing from there. And about halfway down the well there was a different tunnel, which is a secret passage leading into the distant mountains. That bit was from Mion's telling of the story. It was probably an amalgamation of tellings from different relatives. The room was supposed to be a huge secret, but everyone got loose lips at the chance to have fun scaring the young successor. Mion, do you remember one of our relatives talking about a hidden well a long time ago? There's supposed to be a hidden well somewhere in this underground torture room, and it's connected to a secret passage. Did you hear some noise earlier? That was me whipping the old lady. Mion didn't reply, but I saw her bite her lip. Don't worry, I won't whip you. But if you don't cooperate, I might punish her some more. Next time, I won't use a whip. Down at the end. Do you see a cell in the darkness? It's in there. Mion pointed weakly. I walked down to where her finger indicated. A light bulb lit up the cell. It was a lot smaller than the one Mion was in. It was very shallow, and I didn't even need to open the door to see how tiny it was. Of course there's no well in there. I became angry, assuming that she lied to me. But after considering it, I didn't actually think she would at this point. I opened the door and walked in. I noticed something immediately. There was an opening right in the middle of the cell. This opening was naturally disguised. The way the rocks and the shadows were positioned perfectly hid the well. The tip of a rock inside of the cell concealed the entrance. Unless you went in, you'd never notice. But it was such a shallow cell that nobody would even think of going in. Besides, the bars allow you to see the inside well enough. The cell is not even a few meters deep, so it would only take a glance to see everything. Nobody would think of unlocking the door and walking in, but walking in was the only way anyone could find the well. Furthermore, there were many cells in this huge cave. Who'd think that one of them was hiding a secret well? The inside of the well was dark. I couldn't see anything. But every little noise I made produced echoes. I could tell this was a very deep well. I brought a flashlight from the torture room and shone it down the well. It almost looked more like a vertical tunnel, obviously a man-made one at that. There were wedges on the wall like a ladder, and they looked as if they were inviting me to descend. It's kind of ironic that the secret escape route from an underground torture room ended up being a well that takes you even further down. You had no way of knowing whether it would take you to freedom or to hell. Furthermore, there were the tortured bodies of past victims at the bottom. Who would be able to go down this well without hesitation? Nobody in their right mind could go down this well to look for a secret tunnel, hearing the voices of the dead all the while. Have you ever gone down that well, Mion? I've never even wanted to.
I feel the same way. Why would I go down the well where they toss the victims of this torture room? I went back to the torture room and then returned to the cave, pushing the wheelchair containing the hag. Mion screamed. Shion! Are you gonna push Granny down the well? No, I'm not. I'm just dumping her body. She's dead. Rest assured, I didn't torture her to death. It was probably the stun gun. Maybe her heart failed. I could just leave her body here, but I don't want it to rot, you know? Not gonna be impressed unless it's bigger than the 90-foot hole at work. Kidding, you hate vertical holes. How could you? Hey, do you want to take care of her even now that she's dead? Maybe you can use chopsticks to pick maggots off her body. Huh? Mion covered her ears and shook her head. Everything I said seemed to bother Mion. Her own life wasn't guaranteed at this point. Shion! Why did you do this? Let's see. Why do you think? Nobody said anything for a while, but the silence was soon broken. Satoshi? Is this revenge? I don't know if it was really revenge, since it happened so quickly. I'm sure she died without even feeling a thing. Hey, Mion. Now that I think about it, I did have a reason to kill Grandma. Do you know what it was? It wasn't just because she killed Satoshi-kun. It's because she lied! I slapped the hag's head. You said it too. You told me that if I ripped out my nails, she would forgive everyone. That's why I ripped out 3 of my nails. I did what you told me to, right? But she didn't keep her promise. She made Satoshi-kun disappear! Why? What was that for? I continued to slap the hag's head. Her blood was all over my hand by then, and it felt gross. I tried to wipe it off on her clothes, but then her hair got on my hand. I ran to the sink in the torture room and washed my hands with a brush. When I was done, I went back to Mion's cell. After Satoshi-kun disappeared, you came over and told me. You said the relationship between me and Satoshi-kun was forgiven. You also said that the Sonozaki main house had nothing to do with Satoshi-kun's disappearance. Yeah, You lied! 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 My shouts echoed throughout the cave. I was breathing heavily. I felt like I used up all the air in my lungs. I believe you don't know anything. You aren't even sure if the old lady actually trusted you. But I don't know if she forgave Satoshi-kun because of what I did. She wouldn't have told you the truth. The hag didn't keep her promise. She said she'd forgive everyone, but she lied. She didn't forgive Satoshi-kun! Liar, 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 liar! Damn it! Damn it! Give me back Satoshi-kun! I want him back! Have you ever had a nail ripped completely off? Not me, thankfully. I can imagine it hurting a lot. I want him! I want him! I want him! I want him! Head of you pulls me up. God damn it. I kicked the hag's leg repeatedly. Each time I kicked, the wheelchair made a squeaky noise. My chair's not squeaky. I ran out of breath and kneeled down. Mion was still covering her ears and was now shaking. There were tears in her eyes. Sorry to scare you. Oops. Sorry about that. If you really don't know, I won't torment you. Don't worry. But if you were ever lying to me, well, you'll have to accept whatever comes your way. You know what I mean?
Notebook page 183 and 185. Achievement unlocked. Sting of Payback. I wasn't planning to kill the hag so quickly. I was going to kill her anyway, but it was too soon. People would normally assume that the Sonozaki family operates as a hierarchy, but that's not true. It's actually more like a system of government. Several ministries stem from the main family, and each forms a hierarchy of its own. A kid stomped on your foot with a sensitive nailless toe skin? Why the fuck? Why the fuck did they stomp on your nailless toe? What the hell? I mean, I guess it must have been on purpose, right? To be a dick? But, like, Jesus. How did you not just, like, die of pain? Anyway, these ministries don't communicate with one another. The people who belong to a given ministry don't know what other ministries are doing. That way the Sonozaki family's dealings are kept perfectly secret. Of course, the most important people in the family govern several ministries. They know, of course, about their own ministries, and they know a little bit about the ministries their relatives run. But none of them know everything. There are ministries that work in the open, there are ministries that work unseen, and there are some smaller ones that Audio runs herself. Mion seems to know about most of them, but she doesn't necessarily know them all. In fact, she didn't know about the curse. Considering that, the fact that the hag died before I could interrogate her is a huge loss. They were not aware and you were wearing shoes, damn. The head of the Kimiyoshi family was the one who called the main house most often after the 5th year's curse. My father called the second most. My parents were still high in the hierarchy, but the stir caused by my mother's disownment still hung over us, so we got treated as outcasts. So the fact that my father received so many calls proved how much the hag valued us despite the distance at which we were kept, demonstrating her own two-faced respect for both sides of the coin. My father seems to be in charge of the intelligence bureau. He reported police information, gossip, and rumors going around in the Yakuza business to the hag. He silences, stirs, and distorts that information at her request. By the way, my servant Kasai is an old friend of my father's. That must be why Kasai knows many things. But I don't know if my father is involved in the curse's execution. My assumption is that although he gathered information on the police investigation about the case, he wasn't involved in the execution itself. The fact that my father and the hag have this close connection isn't widely known. People know that she uses his information network, but they don't look very far beyond that. In the same way, it's possible that a curse execution team exists under the hag's direct control. People just aren't aware of it. Well, we've gone off the deep end. Let's continue. I'm going to do one more chapter. I was having such a happy dream. Satoshi-kun was in the dream. He was leading his normal everyday life. He was back on the baseball team. Irie and I acted normally around him because we knew that's how mature people should act. We welcomed him back as if he had been here with us the whole time. Although he hits well in practice sessions, he still doesn't do well in a real game. Come on, Satoshi-kun. 3 strikes already? I'm cheering for you. Then Satoshi-kun pouted as he mumbled. I felt tears pouring down my face. Satoshi-kun. Satoshi-kun. The happy dream faded out with my sobs. The harder I tried to focus on it, the faster it faded. Soon it was all gone. I could see the bright morning sun through a crack in the curtains. I was in Mion's room at the Sonozaki house. When did I come back? I was crouching in the corner of the room and crying. A dream is a dream. I wished I hadn't woken up. But one must wake up from a dream. We live in a world where there are no dreams, and that's why we always wake up. But I wasn't sure if I was the only one dreaming that dream, because I felt like Satoshi-kun was right beside me. Satoshi-kun, did you come back? There was no reply. That was the rule. If it was Satoshi-kun, I wish he'd smile at me just once. But Satoshi-kun's presence faded away,
as if you were never there to begin with. I heard the phone ring by the front door. That's right. I was the only one in the house now. I had to answer it. I got up to walk to the front door. I felt unsteady, so I put my hand on the wall to support myself. I hardly got any sleep. It was like I had a bad cold. The phone continued to ring. I probably didn't have to answer it, actually. But I was still half asleep, and all I could think of was answering the phone. Hello, Sonozaki residence.
Sorry to call you so early. It's Kimiyoshi. Is your grandma still sleeping?
It was Uncle Kimiyoshi. She is, yes. I guess she's still tired from yesterday. I think I'll let her sleep in.
Yeah, you probably should. Mion-chan, you're going to school, right? Can I leave a message with you?
Sure. What is it?
Let's see. There will be an emergency meeting regarding the incident from yesterday. It'll be at the Shrine's Assembly Hall, starting at 5 p.m. Did you get that?
Yes. I'll give her the message. As soon as I put the phone down, it rang again. Hello, Sonozaki residence.
Good morning. Sorry to call you so early. This is Kasai. Is this Mion-san? Good morning.
Kasai-san. Good morning.
Is Shion-san still there?
I wasn't panicked, but I hesitated. I could tell him no, or I could play both Mion and Shion. Shion was washing her face just now. I'll get her for you. I decided to play two parts. I went back and forth down the hallway and picked up the phone again. Kasai? Morning!
Good morning, Shion-san. Are you going to school today?
Of course not. I feel miserable.
I kind of expected that. By the way, how are you getting back to Okinomiya? I can have someone come pick you up.
I think I can get a ride from Uncle Kimiyoshi or somebody else.
You're bad on the phone. You wouldn't even remember why he was calling, let alone a date and location. I usually have to write that stuff down. Funny story. So I get a shot of testosterone blockers every 3 months, and I last got one in August. It's supposed to be every 12 weeks. So a few days ago, I'm like, aren't I supposed to have my injection again soon? And so I'm like, okay, when was my previous... Did I write it down? Because I seem to remember making an appointment with the nurse, and I couldn't remember. So I tried to find it, and I didn't find anything where I had written it down or anything like that. So then I'm like, okay, when was the last one? So I looked it up by basically just searching my message history with various people for the word appointment until I eventually found me saying, oh, I'm back from my appointment or something. And then I calculated 12 weeks from that, and it was today. This is a few days ago, so yeah, it was the 17th, and I'm like, okay, I'm not sure if I made an appointment or not. I feel like I did. So I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, should I call in the morning to try to make an appointment? Or, like, I mean, I guess I should ask. It'd be a bit weird to call and ask, but whatever. So I call... The place opens at 8, so around 8:11, I phoned, and I was fucking 13th in the phone queue, and I'm like, Jesus Christ. So it didn't actually take that long. It only took, like, 10 minutes to actually get to the front of the queue. And I'm like, sorry, I have a bit of a weird query. I need to know if I have an appointment today, because I think I made one, not sure. I gave them my name, and they were like, yeah, 4 p.m. And then I was like, okay, thank you. And I hung up the phone. So I'm like, okay, apparently I had an appointment, 4 p.m. Didn't write it down for some reason anywhere. So, okay, whatever. And for the record, like, this 8 a.m. call was, like, I had stayed up until 8 a.m. to make this call. Because I'm like, there's no way if I go to sleep, I'm going to wake up at 8. So I'm like, I'm going to do this and hope that it's late enough in the afternoon that I can wake up. And 4 is actually a pretty decent time for that. So eventually I went to sleep and I got, like, 4 hours of sleep or some shit. Got up, and yeah, I went to my appointment. And this time, you know, we made an appointment in advance again for the 9th of February next year. But like, you know, I actually wrote it down this time. So I don't know why I didn't do that last time, but yeah. So I don't know if that counts as me being bad or good at remembering this stuff, because a few days ago I did remember, oh, it's 3 months, I gotta do it. And then I, like, went out of my way to go figure it out. But I also didn't actually, like, apparently on the day I never remembered to write it down anywhere, so, yeah. Kind of caused myself some trouble there, but... I also wasn't sure if I actually had the medication I needed, because I couldn't remember. Because I have to bring it myself. Reminds you of your pre-college dropout days couldn't keep a day to of your life. Yeah, that's why I try to write stuff down as much as possible. But yeah, so I was like, oh no, did I remember to get it? Because I definitely hadn't bought any recently. So I looked in my room, and I actually had 2. So I'm like, okay, I guess, like, a while ago, I did this to be ready in advance. And I think when the appointment was made today, they also put in an order to get more of it. So, like, I think I'm always going to have 2, which is fine. I'll just rotate, you know, make a queue of it. I see you playing full. Anyway, sorry, I've been distracted. Don't worry, I'll figure something out. Your father told me to make sure you go to school often enough. I'd appreciate your cooperation. I'll go when I feel like it. By the way, Kasai, did you hear? What about? You know, the incident from last night? Yes, I have. How truly horrifying. All the past victims were war criminals from the dam conflict, right? But it's different this year. What do you think about that? I don't really know. Kasai wasn't the type to talk too much. If it was about something complicated, he usually responded like that. Do you know why those 2 fell under the curse of Oyashiro-sama? No. I heard this last night. Supposedly, they snuck into the ritual storehouse during the festival. They used a metal wire or something to unlock the door. Kasai went silent for a while. I held my breath while waiting to see how he responded. I expected him to say that he couldn't believe those people were chosen as victims just for sneaking into a storehouse. I expected him to say that it was just too unrealistic. I see. That was stupid of them. Since Tomitake-san was an outsider, I bet he didn't know. I went along with Kasai, but I felt disturbed on the inside. Kasai didn't wonder why breaking into the ritual storehouse would justify their deaths. I had known Kasai for a long time, which is why I knew there was a heavy meaning to what he said. By the way, Kasai, actually, I did it too. Did you go in? Yeah. You went into the ritual storehouse, Shion-san? Yeah. Takano-san invited me. Takano-san, Tomitake-san, and remember Keiichi who just moved here recently? Him and me, to make 4 of us. I heard Kasai sighing heavily. Even though he didn't say a word, I could tell he was shocked. I'd never known him to act this way before. Shion-san, don't you remember what happened last year? How do you think you can take care of this? Last year it was 3 nails, so maybe 5 this year? I need to get my COVID shot, period. I've been trying to book it. Have I told you guys about this? Fucking, if you're trying to book it over here through the website, which is the only way to do it, by the way, as far as I'm aware. If you're trying to book it, you have to book both the first and second one at the same time. And whenever I've tried to do it, like, I can sometimes get the first one nearby. I can't do it in this town, but I can go one town over either to the east or the west. That's how I like to think about it, because I'm on the coast. Anyway. So I can go to one of the adjacent cities for the first one. But then for the second one, the nearest one is like 40 miles away. I don't drive, and even if I could, I'm not driving for 40 miles for my second fucking booster. Well, actually, I guess it's not even a booster. God, it's just the base one, the second base one. And it's like, what the fuck do they expect me to do? I don't know. It's frustrating and kind of worrying. Like, the job that I'm currently applying for is work from home, Or at least it's like, I can work from home as much as I want and come into the office as much or as little as I want. So I'll probably mostly work from home, but occasionally come in, assuming I get the job. But, like, you know, I should have this. I just fucking can't because it's being made inconvenient for me. And the best advice my mom had was just like, just keep checking until see if, you know, they become available later. And it's like, wow, great. Ugh. I see. But yeah, anyway, I don't know what I'm going to do about that. So I'm still currently completely unvaccinated. Not really for lack of trying. Like, I did put it off a little bit because I wasn't going anywhere anyway, but, you know, it's not like I was out here avoiding it. I just, you know, now that I'm trying, I can't fucking do it, so there you go. Anyway, sorry, I keep getting distracted. Maybe we can eventually move out of this fucking hallway.
Sorry, I wasn't trying to make light of the situation. I knew I shouldn't have done it. I regret it at least a little. But is it really that terrible a thing to do?
You are related to the Sonozaki main family. Do you really think people would understand?
But I've been living in Okinomiya all my life. Since the old woman hated me, I've rarely been to Hinamizawa. Besides, I was stuck at school. How would I know about any of that?
I heard another sigh from Kasai. That sigh told me my excuses would be useless. Shion-san, I am your ally. I want to support you as much as I can, but there are dangers even I can't protect you from. Besides,
Sorry, sis is here, I've gotta go. See ya.
Click. I interrupted Kasai halfway through. I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to hear Kasai reject me, he who had been my ally all my life. Shit. Damn it. I could hear the sound of the cicadas. The sound made it feel like I was being cooked on a huge frying pan, making a sizzling noise. I feel like I've been in this hallway for like a year. I couldn't help feeling remorseful. Now I knew that sneaking into the ritual storehouse wasn't a laughing matter, but I really didn't know it at the time. Sure, the door was locked, so they didn't want anyone to go in. Then why did they change the lock? What did they say? I think it was that Rika-chama said that the previous lock was too heavy for her, so she had it changed to that cheap one. That was how Takano-san broke in. If the heavy lock was still there, this wouldn't have happened. I slapped my own forehead. Then I took a deep breath. I had to calm down. What was the point of fussing now? I'd already passed the point of no return. There was no use thinking otherwise. The hag was already dead. Even if she wasn't, she was now at the bottom of the well. Therefore, it was already past the point where I could just cut my fingers off in apology. I felt so unstable. I had walked on the fence around the swings at the park before as if I was walking on a tightrope. It was fun because even if I fell, it was only a very short distance, but it wouldn't have been fun if I were up really, really high. At that very moment, I was in fact already on a tightrope that was a lot higher than the fence at the park. As soon as I took a step, the rope behind me would vanish. I couldn't step back because there was nothing behind me. That was, in short, the current situation I found myself in. Just standing in one spot was all I could do. Even if I never took another step, I'd fall if I wasn't careful. If I forced myself to walk, the danger would only increase. But if I didn't move, I would fall eventually. I couldn't see what was ahead of me. There was no guarantee that I'd ever find firm ground. But if I stopped, there was only one fate waiting for me. I'd have to move onward. If staying here guaranteed death, then I'd rather try to walk, even if I die as a result. Even if there was a dead end ahead of me, at least I tried my hardest. In general, I try to be optimistic. I could accept my life not lasting particularly long, but I wouldn't go easily. I'd struggle as much as possible. I'd already killed the hag. For that, there could be no other punishment than death. I assume that's a joke sketch, because there's multiple reasons why that wouldn't have worked. I knew my life would end soon. In other words, I was actually already dead. A dead person has nothing to lose. That means I can only go on the offensive. I clenched my fists tightly as I muttered. Even if I had to die, I couldn't die easily. This was my chance to avenge Satoshi-kun. Who did it? For what purpose and why? I was going to investigate. I was going to question.
I was going to expose. Yes, I was going to settle the score. I'd carry out the plan I came up with yesterday. I could hide the hag's death somehow. All I'd have to say is that she hadn't been feeling well since Watanagashi. I could do it all while pretending to be Mion. Just in case her friends at school became suspicious, maybe I'd start telling them that I hadn't been feeling well either. In fact, I did feel groggy from my lack of sleep. When I became Mion, Shion would automatically disappear. I'd already told Kasai that I snuck into the shrine storage, so he'd probably end up telling people that I was demoned away due to the curse of Oyashiro-sama.
お前はもう死んでいる.
Nani? The last person I'd have to think about was the fourth one who snuck into the ritual storehouse, Keiichi Maebara. Maybe I can use him as bait to lure out the enemy. Sorry, Kei-chan, you're gonna be my bait. Yeah, that's also possible, Daisy. That they had a struggle or something. I felt a little bad since I was starting to like him. With all that figured out, let's go to school. I'd gone to school as Mion before, so I knew how things worked. It was almost time to leave the house. Mi-chan! You're late! You waited? You should have just gone on ahead. Hey, Mion. Your face is red. You're breathing heavily, too. Mi-chan, are you not feeling well? Then I put a hand on my forehead. I actually don't know much kanji. I saw O, and then a kanji, and then wa mo. I recognize she, and then, yeah. So I could basically read O something, wa mo shinderu, and it's like, okay, I know what that is. And she is a pretty recognizable one, I feel. I've always thought of it as like a bar with like a weird twisted spider web hanging down. I don't know, your hand is pretty cold. Mi-chan, you're a little bit warm. It's no big deal. Give it half a day and I'll be fit as a fiddle. So I want to point something out as well. For anyone that... I highly doubt anyone wants to go back and rewatch the older ones, but if you do, I was careful to actually use the Shion voice in any scenes where it is Shion pretending to be Mion. I would use the Shion voice instead of the Mion one, which there wasn't really any point to it other than I guess just being consistent because I knew the truth. But yeah, I don't know. I thought it'd be interesting. Are you really okay? You don't have to push yourself, you know. What's this? Kei-chan, are you worried about me? That's nice of you. I'd always thought he was a goofball, so I was a little surprised. I thought they would tease me, but they didn't. I just think you shouldn't push yourself so hard. We can tell the teacher you have to take the day off. I'm fine. I took some medicine. I think it's already working. Yeah, I mean, it's subtle. I don't think you guys would have noticed it. Okay, then let's go. Don't overdo it, but of course, there's... the time. Oh, you do vaguely remember it? Huh. Cool. What? We need to run or we won't make it! This morning got pretty thrilling. Yeah, if I was doing a Mion voice, it would be, this morning got pretty thrilling. You can hear the like the it's like a vocal fry, I guess. Maybe it's just what I need to shake off this sluggishness. Let's run! President, if you would. Everybody stand up! At attention! I made the same mistake before. I never learn, do I? Do you think Mi-chan is doing okay? She doesn't look good. Ah, yeah, you did go through them recently, that's true. How long have I been doing this for? Since June, I want to say, so fucking 5 months already. Oh, really? How unfortunate! It was a good idea to make them believe I was sick.
Even if I did things differently from Mion, I had an excuse. Well, you know, girls have those days where they just don't feel well. It's okay, Sketch.
I don't have those days. Nipa!
Mion's friends kept each other occupied and left me alone. Keiichi Maebara. He might suddenly disappear one day. I couldn't let that happen. That would be like letting a fish take the bait and swim away while I was fast asleep with a fishing pole in my hands. I couldn't miss the moment the enemy took a bite out of Keiichi. I had to be very careful. But it was impossible to keep my eyes on him 24 hours a day. Spying on him at school like this wasn't good enough. Should I have him meet with Shion and let her explain that he's in danger? Maybe we could set up a strategy together. I didn't think Keiichi realized how serious a crime it was to step into the ritual storehouse. I hadn't, after all. Since last year, all the incidents that related to the curse had probably been investigated in secret. People involved with the 3 families would know about the incident from last night, but Keiichi shouldn't know anything. If he knew where he stood now, he'd be more cautious, too. That should make him aware of his surroundings, and maybe he would notice if anything odd took place. The teacher caught him sleeping, so she ordered him to go wash his face. He walked out into the hallway. I was sleepy, too. Good shit, Playful. I had to be alert, but I couldn't clear my mind due to my lack of sleep. I decided to go home early. Since I'd been pretending to be sick since morning, my request was approved. As I exited the building, I saw Keiichi washing his face. I thought she'd be out here. It feels better outside, huh? Mion? No cutting class now. Looked like it felt refreshing for him to wash his face with cold water. I washed my face too, but it didn't feel as good as it looked. Mion, how's your cold doing? You're sleepy because of the medicine, not from lack of sleep, yeah? Actually, this is a secret, but after the festival yesterday, I got wrapped up in the party my relatives were having. And, well, I had a bit. I pretended to drink with an invisible glass. Are you hungover? How old are you? Keiichi exaggerated his reaction, but he still seemed worried. Okay, later. I'm going back. Be careful on your way home. Don't wobble into a sewer or a brook, got it? Keiichi turned around to go back to the classroom. Oh, one more thing, Kei-chan. I stopped Keiichi. He, in response, turned around. What's up? This may sound weird, but don't think too hard about it. Well, it depends what it is. Last night, near the end of the festival, did you see Tomitake-san or Takano-san anywhere? I noticed Keiichi's body tense up. His reaction proved that he felt guilty about sneaking into the ritual storehouse. He was frightened that Mion Sonozaki might know about it. I guess this was enough to give him a certain impression of Mion Sonozaki. You know Tomitake-san and Takano-san, don't you? You remember, Kei-chan, when the 4 of you were talking during setup the day before? I could clearly see how dismayed Keiichi felt. He was trying to come up with an excuse. I can't remember. I might have seen them, or not. He was both a bad liar and a bad actor. He wasn't really that intelligent at all. Well, that would make him a suitable friend for Mion. He was just a brat, unlike Satoshi-kun. Although, when it came to lying and acting, Satoshi-kun was at about the same level. Maybe Keiichi should be credited for at least trying to tell a lie. Satoshi-kun wouldn't have even said a thing. I didn't need to be thinking about him right now. I see. Then, one more question. On the same night, did you see Shion? This is a very mean question. Keiichi was perplexed, as I'd expected. Didn't you ask me that yesterday? I think I told you that I wasn't sure if I had or not. Eh? I'd asked him that yesterday. He must have meant that Mion Sonozaki asked him that question. In other words, she asked him that after he left the storehouse and got back together with his friends. Sorry, she asked him that after he left the storehouse and got back together with his friends.
Damn you, Mion. When I asked her, she said she had no idea we went into the ritual storehouse. Shit. Did you? I guess I just thought I'd get a different answer if I asked you again. Why are you so intent on knowing if I did or not? He was getting defensive. Keiichi couldn't hide his panic as he flared up at me. It's not important. It's just that there are some people who are speaking poorly of Tomitake-san, Takano-san, Shion, and you, Kei-chan. I didn't really hear what they were saying, though. Keiichi was really perplexed now. This wasn't fun at all, but it could still be an interesting game. I don't believe that you're doing something bad. I just wanted to ask a bit about it, so I did. Sorry for making you uncomfortable, okay? I made sure Keiichi felt a sense of crisis, then left. Nobody can tell us apart. We're Mion and Shion, perfect twins. When I returned to the Sonozaki house, I saw a woman with an apron on. It was a housekeeper. Her name was Shimiko-san. The hag had a few housekeepers who took care of the chores around the house. Ah! Mion-chan! I'm glad you're here! Hey, Shimiko-san, can I help you? Today was her turn to come help out at the house. She'd arrived, but the gate was locked and she couldn't get in. She called, but there was no answer, so she'd just been standing there not knowing what to do. Something must have happened to Granny at the festival. She's been in an evil mood ever since last night. I see. Shimiko-san tried to remember if she had done something wrong. She isn't ignoring you, she's just sleeping. She was up until very late, so I bet she can't wake up yet. You know how she is, right? When she gets into this mood, it'll take a long time for her to be happy again. Yes, that's too bad. I think it might be better that you don't show up for a while. Even if you don't mean to upset her, Granny might take it the wrong way. Just let me take care of it. I see. Are you sure? I'm very grateful, though. Sorry to make you do this, but could you let the other housekeepers know that they don't need to come for a while either? When Granny feels better, I'll give you a call. So let's just leave her alone for now. Shimiko-san bowed, then left on her bicycle. Anyone who had ever experienced Granny's wrath would understand. I headed into Mion's room, set her alarm clock for 2 p.m. and crawled into her bed. I needed to recover quickly. I had to be sharp, calm, and cool-headed. School should be out by 2 p.m. Maybe I'd get in touch with Keiichi. I'd have to call him. There would also be a staff meeting at the Furude Shrine Assembly Hall in the evening. All the leaders of the 3 families, their relatives, and the town council members would gather at this meeting. They were all authority figures in Hinamizawa. I'd be attending in place of the hag, who was sick. I'd worry about the rest when I got there. People shouldn't notice that Mion and the hag were missing for a long time. I didn't need to worry, as I had plenty of time. I checked the alarm once more. Then fell asleep as if someone switched me off. Hello? Ah, this is Sonozaki. Well, the younger one. I'll call you when Granny feels better. I'll start using that when I never want to talk to somebody again. Hello? Do you have time to talk right now? Shion, I thought you'd be sleeping in today with a hangover, same as Mion. What? My sis had a hangover? That's so like her. Keiichi had no idea that the Mion he saw earlier was actually me. He didn't notice when we talked in person, so there's no way he would notice on the phone. I never knew that playing 2 roles would be so much fun. To feel such enjoyment in this game of life or death. Maybe I was getting used to this situation. Or maybe my senses had gone numb. Oops, sorry. My parents are waiting for an important call, so I can't talk for too long. What do you need? There's something I wanted to talk about, but if we can't talk long, I guess that's that. Then how about we meet in person? If you could show me where the library is too, that'd be great. You mean the public library near the station? Yes, that's fine. I go past there on my way to work anyway. We decided to meet in Okinomiya. It wasn't easy to get there from Hinamizawa. but I had to hurry. I couldn't run into Keiichi as he was heading there himself. I recalled that the key to the hag's motorcycle was in her secret drawer. The hag usually got driven around for public events, but when she had her own errands, she rode her motorcycle. Keiichi, I assumed, was going to ride his bicycle. I tried to get to Okinomiya before he did. Keiichi arrived quite a bit later than me. Motorcycles are faster, after all. There were hardly any traffic lights to worry about on the way here, either. Wow, Mio never keeps her appointments. I mean, honestly. Making my sister the standard for everything will get you in trouble. Hmm? You're a little unsteady. You didn't get much sleep last night either, did you? Don't try to hide it. You definitely went home from school early. Oh, too bad. I've been at home all day from the beginning. I'm smarter than my sis, after all. Hey now. I don't think you can call playing hooky smarter. You should finish your errand first. We don't have that much time. We're going to the library, right? Yeah, thanks. My mom had to return some books by today. Is the library far? No, it's right nearby. I meant it when I said that we didn't have much time. I had to hurry a little. I was just going to talk to him on the phone, but I ended up coming all the way to Okinomiya. After our talk, Keiichi would slowly head back to Hinamizawa on his bicycle. I'd have to rush back there while making sure I didn't run into him. Otherwise, I couldn't make it on time for the meeting. Maybe I could be a little late, but since I needed to hear everything they were going to discuss, I didn't want to be. This was the Shishibone Public Library. It was sizable, filled with a collection of moldy, smelly books. But they did have air conditioning, and it was quiet. It was the perfect place for when you wanted to be alone. After Satoshi-kun disappeared last year, I came here a lot to think about various things. This was where I first met Takano-san. I didn't want to run into her with Keiichi in tow. But then I remembered that she was already dead. Good line. The first floor of the building was occupied by government offices. The library itself was on the second floor, so we had to walk up a huge staircase to get there. I'm smarter, cooler, more gorgeous, and a real productive event planner compared to Mion. What's that a reference to? I tasted cool air on my skin as soon as I walked through the automated door. Did they have automated doors in the 80s? Huh. I always thought that was like a late 90s, early 2000s thing. Because I've always, like, my whole life they've been around, but they always seemed, like, futuristic when I was a kid. I'm like, whoa, this is for some fancy stuff. These doors that open by themselves. It felt like the kind of thing that would have been really recent, but maybe not. Unlike outside, it was very quiet in here. The room temperature was both comfortable and suitable for books. I could smell the scent of old pages. All libraries smell the same. Keiichi walked up to the return table after he said so. Because it was a weekday, there was hardly anyone around. It really was very quiet. I was going to chat about some ordinary things, then move on to the main subject. After Keiichi returned the books, I invited him into the inner section of the library. Keiichi knew Mion well, but he didn't know me at all. He showed an interest in our life story. This is exactly where Takano-san told me about the true history of Hinamizawa a year ago. I was about to tell Keiichi about things that were very similar to that. Did God have a sense of irony? Now that you mention it, that toy store looked like it was managed by relatives as well. Does that mean they operate Angel Mort too? I told him the reason why the Sonozaki family was so powerful in this area. I assumed that since Keiichi came from the city, there was a good chance he couldn't even begin to understand how one old family could literally control an entire area. Automatic doors were invented in 1954. Okay, but when did they become commonplace? You know? Who the fuck is messaging me while I'm streaming? Anyway. They got popular in the 80s, okay. Unless I explained to him how powerful the Sonozaki family was, he wouldn't understand what kind of danger was barreling towards him. Shion, do you want the short answer? Is the short answer you're fictional? Well, no, I guess the short answer is yes, the long answer is you're fictional, and the author did that intentionally. The family is particularly strong in finance and real estate. Even a lot of members of the Chamber of Commerce and Industry either had the last name Sonozaki or are their relatives. There are Sonozakis in the city council and the prefectural assembly too, since they have the Okinomiya area giving them strong electoral support. Wait a minute. This is all escalating pretty quickly. Your relatives operate shops in downtown Okinomiya, and they're especially strong in finance and real estate? On top of that, a lot of people in the Chamber of Commerce and Industry are relatives, and there are even some elected to local offices? Keiichi counted with his fingers. He was clearly surprised to hear all that about the Sonozaki family. It seems he was flexible enough to accept even something that sounded outrageous to him. He was starting to understand things, although slowly. The way he viewed Shion Sonozaki was changing little by little, too. I see. That should be enough background information. Now I could go on to explain about Mion Sonozaki, the successor. Then I changed the subject, like Takano-san did with me. I go on to talk about the curse of Oyashiro-sama, and then the series of mysterious deaths. So then, the Sonozaki family, it's pretty famous in this area? Yep. Crazy, isn't it? A fat man with a cigarette suddenly cut into our conversation. Oishi? Why was he here? Hello. Good afternoon. Are you on a date today? Ah, what I would give to be young again. If you thought we were on a date, then why are you bothering us, Oishi-san? What timing? It couldn't be coincidence. I knew this man too well. He was crafty, sly, and clever. His presence here just can't be a coincidence. Did he see us somewhere in town and follow us? But why? Did he need something from me, Keiichi, or perhaps the both of us? From what I could guess, I didn't think it was me that he wanted something from. It was almost like he was trying to keep Keiichi away from me. Oishi was aware I gave false testimony to protect Satoshi-kun last year. Maybe he didn't think he could talk to Keiichi if I was around. Why did Oishi need to talk to Keiichi? It must be about the incident from yesterday. I'm sure there were plenty of plainclothes officers at the festival, so they had to have seen who was last with the victims. In other words, Keiichi and me. But Oishi knew I was hard to deal with. That was why he was focusing on Keiichi at present. Why did he have to show up at a time like this? Maebara-san, right? You're one tough guy. Two-timing the Sonozaki sisters, are you? No, I'm not two-timing anyone. Keiichi looked at me, hoping for assistance. He blushed. The way he panicked reminded me of Satoshi-kun. That aside, this wasn't going well. Oishi might even start talking about my relationship with Satoshi-kun. I didn't want him to, nor did I want Keiichi to have any preconceptions. Oishi took a quick glance at me. His eyes told me something. He was purposely talking about the things I'd rather not talk about. He was basically telling me to leave or he'd continue on to something that was worse than what they were currently talking about. He didn't use words, but his eyes clearly communicated that anyway. Damn that big fat weasel. I'm sorry, Kei-chan. I really do need to get to my job. Better Colossus suspend us tightly, so I tell him he's going to be hanging from the end of the chapter. Huh? Oh, you do? I realized that I wouldn't achieve anything like this, even if I stayed longer, so I used my part-time job as an excuse to leave. Oishi looked at me and grinned. Damn it. He won today, but I'll win next time. Wait, didn't you have something to talk about today, Shion? Yep, I'll see you later. Oh, I'll give you a call after I'm done. It'll be okay to call at night, right? Yeah. Probably okay. Then I'll talk to you later tonight. Bye. The hag's motorcycle had become my primary means of transportation. Do you think Oishi also had huge eyes like everyone else when he was younger? Maybe. That's just kind of how anime characters age, right? My next stop was the staff meeting at the Huride Shrine's Assembly Hall. It was easy to imagine how a normal meeting would play out if it were just celebrating the end of Watanagashi, but today's staff meeting was likely going to be as strained as the Sonozaki family councils. Yes, this staff meeting was going to deal with the heart of Hinamizawa. I couldn't let my guard down, even for a moment. I rested for a while at the house, then left for the meeting. I walked up the long stairs to the Furude shrine. At the top, I saw some elderly men smoking in front of the hall. Since they had a minor fire a long time ago, it had been made into a non-smoking area. Is that Mion-chan? The head of the Kimiyoshi family, Uncle Kimiyoshi, noticed me and waved. He must not have expected Mion to come alone. Normally it would have been either the hag by herself or Mion tagging along as an assistant. Granny's been in a terrible mood since the incident last night. She's been staying in bed and wouldn't even let me get near her. They all understood how troublesome she was when in a bad mood. They smiled bitterly in sympathy. So you're here as the Sonozaki family representative, then? Has Oryo-san told you anything? Sort of. What did he mean, has Oryo-san told you anything? That line by itself didn't really explain much. The staff meeting was usually led by the mayor, the head of the Kimiyoshi family, and he'd asked me, as the substitute for the Sonozaki family head, if I'd heard anything from her. His eyes didn't get small, the rest of him got fatter. That's funny. I then realized he was supposed to lead today's staff meeting. No, Kimiyoshi-san. Do I really have to lead the meeting today? According to the ranking order of the family councils, any substitute for the Sonozaki family head is above the Kimiyoshi family head. In other words, I'd have to lead today's first meeting. There's no way I could do that. Don't worry, I'll do it. You can just take a seat, Mion-chan. If there's something you've heard from Oryo-san, just let us know, okay? Kimiyoshi-san, why don't we get started? Everyone's here now. The smokers put out their cigarettes and went back into the hall. The tables were set in a horseshoe shape, and I was told to sit next to the chair reserved for the chief. The seat opposite mine was empty. Considering its location, it was probably for the Furude family head, Rika Furude. But somebody had said earlier that everybody was already here. Either Rika-chama had called in absent, or the empty seat was just a formality. Knowing the subject of this meeting, I don't think that the Furude family head would even want to attend. Even if Rika-chama actually attended, she wouldn't be able to say anything. All she'd usually do at the Sonozaki family councils was draw pictures on a notepad. She would probably end up drawing pictures in this meeting too. Besides, they probably didn't want her to hear anything unpleasant. In this way, the empty Furude family seat was easily explained. When everyone was seated, the head of the Women's Association served tea. She gave me an evil look, trying to tell me to help out. I got up and did so. After that, everyone fell quiet, and the secretary stood up. Everyone, thank you for coming today on such a short notice, despite your busy schedules. Let's start with a few words from the mayor. Go ahead, please. Please excuse me for staying seated. Ken-chan, you stay seated too. Thank you all for coming today. Also, you all did a great job at Watanagashi yesterday. The festival was a great success, as usual. There weren't any mishaps. Lots of villagers came, and I believe it went great on the whole. Let me see, how many people was it? According to the Imperial General Headquarters report, approximately 5,000 people showed up. Everyone laughed except me. I hope we'll continue to work together to carry on this tradition. I appreciate your cooperation. Clap, 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 clap. An applause with only 8 people doesn't sound so great. Okay, let's move on to today's proceedings. Interesting. Kimiyoshi-san will lead the meeting today. Please applaud if you approve. Clap, 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 clap. Thank you. Then, with your approval, Mayor Kimiyoshi will take over. Please go ahead. Thank you, Ken-chan. Let's start now. Sorry, could you close the curtains? Everyone closed the curtains nearest to them. The sun was still up, but with all the curtains closed, the room became very dark. The village chief explained the details of the incident, as well as what went on with the police. A police vehicle discovered Tomitake-san's body on its way back to Okinomiya last night. Oishi's special curse unit was standing by, expecting something to happen for the 5th time, so they responded quickly. Since Tomitake-san and Takano-san were rarely apart, Oishi got in touch with the neighboring prefectural police departments and asked them to look for her. As a result, they found a burned body of a woman in the mountains of the Gifu prefecture, and the body was then identified as Mio Takano. Considering the circumstances, the police ended up labeling the incident as the 5th of the ongoing series of mysterious deaths. When he finished, there was dead silence. I watched to see who would speak first. Nobody said a thing. Then I noticed Kimiyoshi-san looking at me. This was where the head of the Sonozaki family would speak. Mion-chan, has Oryo-san said anything about this whole thing? Everyone looked in my direction. I was sure they could see the hag in me. I'm Mion Sonozaki, acting head of the Sonozaki family. I'm here in place of Oryo, the current head. Thank you for having me. I became Mion. I tried to become as cold and unfeeling as the Mion I witnessed a year ago. That cold version of Mion was inside of me. That was me. I was her. Unfortunately, the curse of Oyashiro-sama has come to pass for the 5th time. This is deeply regretful. Everyone was held captive by my words. I wasn't a little girl anymore. The hag was speaking through my mouth. They all heard me and trembled in fear. Does anyone know why the curse happened again this year? After my question, everyone whispered to each other. I will tell you. It was because they broke the rule of the ritual storehouse and desecrated the sacred ground within. How dare they! A few elderly men got up and yelled, The fools! I can't believe this! They deserve to be killed! Oyashiro-sama, please calm your anger. Oh my, how did that happen? Oyashiro-sama. This is why we hate outsiders! They just don't think! They're just too stupid! They got what they deserved. It was their own fault. The angry old men yelled even as they trembled in fear. Their sudden change scared me more than a little. Even Uncle Kimiyoshi, who was usually so gentle and sweet, became like a demon of war, cursing those who broke the rule of the ritual storehouse. It had become like a raging ocean inside the assembly hall. Their yells spun about like a whirlpool. They roared, crashed, and howled. Even while doing nothing but watch, I could feel myself turning pale. Mion threatened me yesterday, and Kasai had been shocked this morning. What I saw before me was similar to that. Even the sweet and gentle Uncle Kimiyoshi was saying they deserved to die. I was fearful of the sudden change in those elderly men. More than anything, the fact that they all believed that those people deserved to die for trespassing is what terrified me. It wasn't just that, of course. The real thing I was scared of was that I was one of the people they wanted dead. In other words, it was almost like they were telling me to die of the curse. If they were to find out I snuck into the ritual storehouse, it was very possible that they would strangle me on the spot. Actually, they might not kill me that easily. By then, I was certain. The people in this room were true believers in Oyashiro-sama, just like the hag. They wouldn't hesitate to murder whoever made Oyashiro-sama angry on his behalf. Even if they didn't carry out the killing themselves, they would pretend they didn't see anything. Yes, not even if my head was cut off right in front of them. Everyone here would act in collusion and say I never attended today. If they all testified that they waited and I didn't show, I'd be demoned away. It would be far too easy for them to erase someone and have them disappear. There was no mistake. The people linking the hag and the curse were definitely here at this meeting. I continued speaking. I was Mion Sonozaki. I was on the side responsible for the curse. Therefore, at that moment, I didn't need to worry about anything. Nobody could tell the difference between Mion and me. That's what would keep me safe. Please, be silent. Hey! Quiet down! Uncle Kimiyoshi helped me to quiet everyone, but his tone was violent. He really scared me. Everyone gradually became silent. In fact, it was 4 people who snuck into the storehouse. 2 more remain. People once more became restless upon hearing that, but Uncle Yoshi yelled at them again and they settled down. Tomisake-san and Takano-san were old enough to be made responsible for their own poor judgment. As a result, the curse of Oyashiro-sama fell upon them immediately. but the other two were simply children. The curse has yet to fall upon them, but there will be some kind of punishment. Everyone stayed quiet that time. They had all turned genuinely pale, trying not to miss a word I said. After all, they were all thinking that the kids I mentioned could be their own relatives or even grandchildren. They wanted to know who they were, to put their minds at ease. The other two who snuck into the ritual storehouse were Shion Sonozaki and Keiichi Maebara. I could feel the air getting drier. It was so dry it almost felt like it was going to start making a crackling noise. Shion Sonozaki has already... I couldn't even hear the old people breathe. I took a peek at Uncle Kimiyoshi, who was sitting next to me. He'd adored Shion as if she were his own granddaughter, but she had been demoned away. I wanted to see how distressed and sad he'd look, and when I saw his face, I felt a sensation on my back as if my skin itself was making a cracking noise. He didn't even have an expression on his face. Uncle Kimiyoshi adored me. I loved him, and I thought he loved me too. That was why I expected him to be saddened after learning that I met with such a cruel fate. What was I thinking? The memory of his warm smile shattered inside of me. There was no way of describing the fear I experienced in that moment. In mere words. He had suddenly changed into someone I didn't even recognize. Uncle Kimiyoshi noticed me looking at him and spoke. What about Keiichi Maebara? Not yet. I had to take a deep breath to regain my composure. All four who snuck into the ritual storehouse will suffer the curse of Oyashiro-sama. Keiichi Maebara is no exception. Chilling looks, cruel looks, emotionless looks, shrewd looks, and the looks of people who are about to snap. When I saw his face, the colors of it, I could feel the demons chewing my words while they stared at me with their sharp eyes. I could see some of them sticking their snake-like tongues out in and out. I could see flames in some of their eyes. They were memorizing the names of the intruder the curse had yet to fall upon. And so the meeting went on. We were told not to tell the police too much. What, Daisy? To report what they asked us, and to hold another meeting whenever something of significance happened. If something unexpected took place, we were to get in touch with either the head of the Kimiyoshi family or the head of the Sonozaki family for instructions on what to do. With those closing remarks, the meeting was over. It was already getting dark outside. Being in a valley surrounded by mountains, once the sun went down in Hinamizawa, it got dark very quickly. Even if it was hot during the day, it had cooled down quickly at night. The elderly people said goodbye to each other and left on their bicycles, on their motorcycles, or in their cars. Uncle Kimiyoshi waved them goodbye and started to head home himself. I called out to him. Kimiyoshi-san, do you have plans after this? I called him Kimiyoshi-san instead of Uncle Kimiyoshi. He stopped. No, I don't have anything planned. Can you stop by my house? Does Oryo-san want to see me? Yes. Takashi 69 also known as 69 as a rapper? I see. Anyway. She wants to talk to you about something in person. Okay, I'll stop by. Uncle Kimiyoshi arrived at the Sonozaki house. He often came to the house to have secret meetings with the hag, so he wasn't suspicious at all. I invited Uncle Kimiyoshi into the living room. I served him a cup of tea and told him I was going to fetch the hag. I left the room and killed some time down the hallway. Granny will be here after she gets dressed. She might take a little while. Oh, that's okay. I'll just wait. Uncle Kimiyoshi relaxed as he sipped his cup of tea. I sat next to him. I think she wants to talk to you about Shion. I mentioned my name and watched for his reaction. Uncle Kimiyoshi looked so grim. I couldn't even tell if he heard me. Oh, I see, Daisy. I didn't know about that. I decided to continue speaking until he reacted in some way. You remember the incident from last year with Shion, yes? She became friendly with people of the Hojo family. She was forgiven after ripping out her nails, wasn't she? Yes, 3 nails.
Huh, I see. Uncle Kimiyoshi folded his arms and thought for a while. Where is Shion-chan now? In the basement. How is she doing? Uncle Kimiyoshi sounded worried. When I heard that, I felt relieved that Uncle Kimiyoshi was on my side. His anger in the assembly hall was just an act. She's been crying. Mion-chan, tell me, what is Oryo-san going to do with Shion-chan? She hasn't told me any details. As you know, Granny becomes awfully quiet when she's truly furious. Going into the ritual storehouse, huh? Furthermore, it's her own granddaughter. That's a tough decision to make. Uncle Kimiyoshi thought that the hag must be unsure of what to do with Shion. What do you think? What do you think will happen to Shion? Well, I'm sure it'll be far more than just 3 nails this time. Knowing how Oryo-san is, she won't hold back just because it's her granddaughter. Actually, she might be even more harsh, especially because they're related. Yes, she did go into the ritual storehouse. That's not something that can be forgiven so easily. Indeed. It's sacred, after all. But in a way, maybe it's not fair to Shion. She's been away from Hinamizawa, as you know. I'm sure she knew she wasn't supposed to trespass in the ritual storehouse, but maybe she didn't know how forbidden it was. Yeah, that's true. Poor Shion-chan. Other than the tattoo on my back, how would you tell the difference between Shion and me? There isn't one. There's no point in distinguishing between Mion and Shion in the first place. Twins are proof of bad luck. One should be eliminated as soon as they're born. Such is the family precept. The hag actually put her hands around my neck right after I came out of the womb. That's how the story went, at least. In the end, the hag didn't kill me, but instead pretended I didn't exist. She forced herself to call one of us Mion and the other Shion. She adored Mion and hated Shion. My sister and I never understood why we had to go through that. We didn't care who was Mion or Shion. So one day, we came up with an idea. We decided to share the joy Mion experienced and the sadness Shion experienced. We often switched places. We were both Mion, and at the same time, we were both Shion. Adults around us tried to put different clothes on us or style our hair differently so they could tell us apart. That was nonsense. No matter what they did to us, all we had to do was switch places and nobody could tell us apart. Finally, they decided that we switched places because we were always together. On that day, Shion got to go to an amusement park. Wait, did I skip a message? Okay. Since then, we've been separated. Mion-chan. I can't even imagine what will happen to Shion. Whatever it is Granny decides to do, I'm not in a position to say anything about it. She doesn't listen to her relatives. You're right. That's something Oryo-san needs to work on. If Shion wasn't Shion Sonozaki, she would have been dead a long time ago. I can't even begin to imagine what kind of punishment might be equal to death. Even if she isn't killed, she'll probably never see the light of day again. In other words, she'll be demoned away. Mion-chan, does Shion-chan regret what she has done? Yes. In response, Uncle Kimiyoshi tapped my shoulder and then slapped his own chest. He smiled reliably. Don't worry. If Shion-chan feels bad about what she has done, she won't be demoned away. Leave it to me. Really? I'm sure Oryo-san will be furious to hear me say anything, but I won't give up. I'll explain to her that Shion-chan regrets what she has done, and I'll beg for her forgiveness. Tears began to fall from my eyes. I knew it. Uncle Kimiyoshi was my ally after all. He said he would forgive Shion. He was my ally. I was so very happy.
Are you sure? Are you sure she won't be demoned away like Satoshi Hojo-kun was last year? Uncle Kimiyoshi smiled reliably again and told me. He was a brat of the Hojo family. This is Shion-chan of the Sonozaki family we're talking about here. Of course she'll be forgiven. Yes, yeah, Shion's really laying it on a little thick here. Uh-oh. Huh? A brat of the Hojo family? Are you talking about Satoshi-kun? Last year's victim? Those Hojo people. They were traitors who tried to sell out the whole village. Of course he got demoned away. He was a Hojo after all. Huh? 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 The Hojo people should all be cursed. Only people like them get demoned away. Shion-chan will be okay. It won't happen to someone like her. Uncle, didn't Shion take care of that for Satoshi-kun last year? Wasn't he supposed to be forgiven? Take care of that? What do you mean? Remember? 3 nails. She removed 3 of her nails. Kasai-san, Uncle Yoshiro, and then Satoshi-kun. 3 people. She removed 3 nails for 3 people. Eh? So that was why it was 3 nails, huh? Huh? What? Wasn't that the significance of those 3 nails? Yeah, you're right. There were 3 people involved, hence the 3 nails. I heard that too. But what? Kasai-san, Yoshiro-san, and Shion-chan. That makes 3. What? Eh? What? Huh? What? I endured excruciating pain. The first one was my left pinky, then the ring finger, and then the middle finger. People held me down so I couldn't move, but I endured. I had to endure 3 nails. I didn't know which nail was for Satoshi-kun. If my middle finger was for Satoshi-kun, I'd have to endure until the middle finger was done so that Satoshi-kun would be forgiven. That was why I endured. Even Mion said afterwards, everything was forgiven. Huh? 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 Mion, didn't you say Satoshi-kun was forgiven? Didn't you? That's what I heard. I think that's what I heard. Or did I? Huh? 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 I felt the air move. There shouldn't have been a breeze in that room, but I felt it anyway. The cool air stroked the back of my neck. That was when my true self stood right behind me and nodded. Although there was no wind, my hair billowed. The burning wickedness buried deep inside my eyes became visible. Why do you think Satoshi Hojo-kun got demoned away? Eh? Satoshi-kun's parents did in fact try to sell out the village. They deserved the curse of Oyashiro-sama. But Satoshi-kun was simply their son. What has he done? Mion-chan? I'm asking you what kind of crime Satoshi-kun committed. You said earlier that he deserved to be demoned away because he was born of the Hojo family. What has he done to deserve being demoned away? Kimiyoshi didn't know what to say to the sudden question. He seemed dismayed. I didn't hear her say it, but I know. It was Oryo Sonozaki's decision. She decided that the curse of Oyashiro-sama would fall upon all the Hojos. Oh, wait, Mion-chan, that's not true. Didn't she decide that? No, she didn't. The curse of Oyashiro-sama falling upon the Hojo family. I do remember talking about something like that, but we never decided that. Nobody did. Then why did you say, because he was one of the Hojos earlier? Sorry, Mion-chan. That was, I shouldn't have said that. I'm sorry. That's just it. Anything that happens to the Hojo family is the curse. As long as someone has the Hojo name, nobody cares about what happens to that person. That idea has spread like a virus amongst all the villagers. It didn't matter if Satoshi-kun did anything or not, because he was a Hojo, he was filthy. That infection of an idea is the entire problem. And you all believed in that idea. You couldn't even think straight anymore. I can't forgive you. I can't let someone like you exist. Oh, fuck, okay. This is too fast. You can... I can't let someone like you exist. People like you cornered Satoshi-kun and his family. Poor Satoshi-kun. What has he done? He hasn't done anything. He was a Hojo, that's all. What kind of crime is that? What did the curse fall upon him? What kind of crime has he committed? Ah! Kimiyoshi's upper body bent backward and fell onto the floor. That was that. I put my stun gun back in my pocket.
Sorry, Shion. What was that you just said?
Apparently, Takano-san and Tomitake-san died last night. Takano-san was found burned to death. Tomitake-san was... well, it looked like a suicide. I found out this morning. I heard my father talking to a relative on the phone about it.
As I thought, Keiichi didn't know anything about what happened after the festival last night.
Of course, it's not getting reported by the media. And that's how it was in the past, too.
Keiichi insisted that unless he heard about it on the news, it couldn't be real. But the investigations into the series of mysterious deaths are done in secret now. Of course he didn't hear about it on the news.
I hear the mayor and several important politicians from the Sonozaki family put all the pressure they could on the police.
Then you mean their deaths are going to be dealt with in total secrecy?
That's how it is. Of course, the police are still investigating. That's being performed in secret too, though, so I hear the investigation itself is very restricted in what it can and can't do. You could essentially say they're interfering with the police investigation.
I can't believe this! People died, and yet they're dealing with everything in secret?
If we break it down further, it means that no matter who dies on the night of Watanagashi, it won't go public.
That's the biggest pile of bullshit I've ever heard!
Kei-chan, remember how I said before that the villagers could be the ones carrying out Oyashiro-sama's curse? That's what I mean. At some point, a tradition was created here in Hinamizawa, where every year you're allowed to kill someone on the night of Watanagashi. Yes, that's the truth about the series of mysterious deaths in Hinamizawa, also known as Oyashiro-sama's curse. On the day of Watanagashi, 2 people will be killed. The perpetrators are using the curse of Oyashiro-sama as an excuse to kill one victim and make another disappear. That's why the curse of Oyashiro-sama takes place. That's what happens in Hinamizawa, and that's what happens with the curse. What Kimiyoshi said is all true. Infecting everyone with the idea that the enemy from the dam conflict deserved to die was the root of all of this. That was the system of vague commands used in the Sonozaki family, created by its head, Oryo. One thing that must be mentioned about that command system is that the person giving the orders and the one executing them didn't need to interact in any way. Though Oryo was the commander, she never gave actual orders. She only had to expect something to happen. Every single one of the family council members around her would want to satisfy that expectation if given the chance. They didn't have to be proactive about satisfying it. Yeah, I'm gonna just go to the end of the chapter. Sorry for keeping you up there, Daisy. They could be passive too, but when the chance arose, anyone who knew Orio's intentions could potentially become the one to execute her orders. Therefore, Oryo would never know who actually executed her order, and none of the relatives knew it either. But they all knew things would conclude just as Oryo wanted, and they could assume it was one of their own who did it for her. This passive support system was thoroughly effective, and it spread all over the village. Its ties became even tighter after the dam conflict. Anyone could be the one to execute Orio's orders. Therefore, everyone supported each other. If someone did something, then the others would try to satisfy Orio's expectation in different ways. For example, they'd come up with false evidence or otherwise passively interfere with an investigation. Even if they didn't know exactly who they were protecting, they'd still work together to protect whoever it was. Yes, I had finally figured out how it all worked. Phrased in a more organized way, it would go as follows. The system of killing 2 people who were unwanted by the village each year required 3 elements. The first element was a region of solidarity. It was created during the long and unique history of Hinamizawa. The villagers' bonds became even tighter during the dam conflict. That was one of the conditions for this place to have a curse. It was an element that was already in the region, not one that could be created. The next element was having the same moral standards. This was a very important element, as the curse wouldn't have happened without it. Also, this element was created by Oryo Sonozaki herself, and that was why she could claim that the system was established by her own will. Having the same moral standards means that everyone everywhere acknowledges the same enemy. Even when everyone in the village joined together, it would be meaningless if they didn't know exactly who the enemy was. During the dam conflict, Oryo Sonozaki made the identity of the enemy very clear to everyone. They couldn't just say that they were against the dam construction and that the government was their enemy. That wasn't clear enough. The government didn't really pinpoint who the enemy was, but Oryo made enemies out of the construction site itself, and therefore its manager. She chose targets that the villagers could see with their own eyes. They were clear and easy to understand. The villagers acknowledged that everyone at the dam construction site was their enemy, and that construction site manager was the enemy commander. Using the same method, she labeled one after another as an enemy of the village, practically cataloging a list of enemies to print into the villagers' minds. Earlier, I'd used the term infecting for this phenomenon. Those infected by this idea were the people unconsciously giving the orders to commit murder. When the infection spread across the village, when all of Hinamizawa's residents acknowledged the same enemy, that's when Hinamizawa itself became a murderer. Oryo combined these two elements, a solidary region and having the same moral standards, then selected the enemy and spread that notion throughout the village. The law would normally have punished both the one who committed the crime and the one who gave the order, but Oryo's system didn't require an order at all. Oryo just had to become concerned about the enemy she had pre-selected. But that alone wouldn't cause the curse to take place. Oryo's concern was like a safety device, and even when the safety device was off, the curse wouldn't occur unless there was a finger to pull the trigger. You notice this trope of protagonist figures out the solution to an overly complex mystery and spends several minutes explaining in detail happening and like several things. I mean, there's a reason for it, right? If you got a mystery, there's only so many ways that you can kind of explain that, especially if the audience is not necessarily picked up on everything all the way. But it's a little presumptuous to assume that this is the be-all end-all of things that Shion's talking about here. Who'd guessed that Village of Assassins could have turned out so bad? God. The last necessary element was to set a date for execution, the night of Watanagashi, the night to venerate Oyashiro-sama, the guardian deity of Hinamizawa. On that night, the curse of Oyashiro-sama falls upon two enemies of the village, and they disappear. Everyone in the village acknowledged that as fact. In other words, if the same incident took place on any of the other 364 nights of the year, it would be nothing other than a murder case. But if it happened on the night of Watanagashi, then it would transform into the curse of Oyashiro-sama. The idea that villagers are allowed to kill their enemies on the night of Watanagashi had infected them. The villagers were the cells of this huge creature called Hinamizawa, and each cell would be taught who the enemy was. The set date was basically a green light for whoever was in the best position to kill the enemy. That was the truth of the curse of Oyashiro-sama. Therefore, the one who actually killed Satoshi-kun isn't my enemy. The one who set up this murderous system and the one who named Satoshi-kun's family as the enemy is my enemy. To use a broader definition, Hinamizawa itself and the very system of Oyashiro-sama's curse is my enemy. A lot of times you see the trope pop up, the protagonist is also dead wrong. That's also true, I think I've seen that. I already killed the hag, the one who designed the system. Kimiyoshi, the one whose job it was to infect the villagers with the system, was already in my hands. I just had to find out who else was involved and how much. It was like pulling a weed while being very careful not to break its roots. I announced that Keiichi Maebara was one of the people who snuck into the shrine storage. I was certain that fact had already spread throughout the underside of the village. In other words, Keiichi Maebara was an object of the curse of Oyashiro-sama now. Takuno-san and Tomitake-san were found dead, having been killed in gruesome ways. Usually in Western media, it's all separated across multiple smaller but equally wrong theories. Yeah, there's usually at least one or two red herring theories given. I don't know. I don't know if I've actually consumed that much mystery media, but I definitely like it. Like what I've seen of it. I like the structure and how that all works. That was the curse of Oyashiro-sama. In that case, they could demon away 2 more people as sacrifices to calm the anger of Oyashiro-sama. The set date for the curse was already over. Just like what happened to Satoshi-kun, demoning away was allowed a little extra time. Something that would happen to Keiichi Maebara within a few days. I'd wait patiently, careful to not let my enemy simply take Keiichi Maebara, my bait. Keiichi had been yelling on the other end of the phone for some time. He kept yelling that he didn't want to go into the ritual storehouse to begin with. He claimed he was simply invited by Takano-san and me. He shouldn't be in danger because of that, he said. He was feeling a sense of crisis and tension. This was going to work. The livelier the bait, the easier it is to spot. Why the hell did you do that? I didn't have anything to do with this! Oh yeah, I forgot. In the parallel scene for this in Watanagashi, this is just where Keiichi goes off on a fucking, like, 10-minute rant, screaming at Shion, and she's just not responding. I guess this is what she was thinking about. What will you do? What are you going to do, damn it? How are you going to take responsibility for this? Oh, huh? Hey, are you listening? Shut up. I've heard enough of your pitiful tears. I hung up the phone. There was no point in talking to him when he got like that. Besides, I'd already achieved my goal, which is to make him realize the danger awaiting him. I took a deep breath, then called the house of the village chief. Hello, Kimiyoshi residence. This is Sonozaki. So, did you find the mayor? Oh, it's you, Mion-chan. We've been calling everyone, but no luck. We can't find him. I don't know who else to call. I wonder where he is. We've called a few places too, but nothing. I talked to Granny, and she says we should have the youth group look for him. At this time of day? In this part of the country? Localized entirely within your kitchen? Besides, we aren't even sure if he's really missing. You just take a nap while he's going off? I tell you what, could be off right then. Good shit. It's right after Watanagashi. She just thinks we should be cautious. If the youth group can't find him, then we should call the police first thing in the morning. We'd rather not get the police involved unless we really have to, though. Did Oryo-san say that? Yes. If you don't believe me, I'll have her get on the phone. Oh, no. I understand. Okay, we'll gather the youth group and look for him. If they can't find him, we'll call the police in the morning. That was a pretty good bluff from Mion, by the way. Please call the leader of the youth group, then. I'll be right over in Granny's place. Thank you. I'll get everyone together right away. Okay. See you later. It wouldn't be like they'd be like, see you later. The youth group had gathered at the Higurashi shrine. They were going to try to find the mayor. I also had to go in the absence of the hag. Just to be mean, I stopped by the underground torture room to let the mayor know that I was headed to the Higurashi shrine to search for him. Incidentally, according to the tab on the keychain, this underground torture room was actually called the Underground Storehouse for Ritual Implements. This is the man who was yelling that whoever trespasses on the ritual storehouse should be killed. Although it was an underground ritual storehouse, he was there now, atoning for what he had done. It was pretty ironic. Maybe I was the only one who felt that way, though. How are you doing, Uncle Kimiyoshi? Kimiyoshi didn't say a word, but he made a noise with the chain. Everyone is making such a fuss because they can't find you. Your family called me, so I suggested they gather the youth group to look for you. I'm heading over there now. Was this mean or what? Kimiyoshi could only make noise with the chain. He couldn't even express any emotion other than anguish. Is the chain too short? Why don't I make it longer every time you give me an answer to a question? If it's even a little longer, you'll feel better. Kimiyoshi's hands were tied behind his back with a tight wire. He was wearing a leather collar with a chain, which was strapped tightly around his neck, too. The collar's chain was on a pulley attached to the ceiling, with the chain pulling him up toward it. That chain was very short and pulled very tight. Kimiyoshi had to stand on tiptoes to be able to breathe. He'd been like that for almost an hour already. He was already exhausted. If I left him overnight, he'd probably end up hanging himself. You told me earlier that you didn't know, but I'll ask you one more time. Please tell me anything you know about Satoshi Hojo-kun. Oh, sorry, you can't even talk, can you? I'll loosen the chain a little while we chat, then. I turned the pulley just a little to loosen the chain that was pulling on Kimiyoshi's neck. Kimiyoshi's heels finally touched the ground, relieving the pressure on his muscles. I really don't know, Shion-chan. I really don't. Don't you even know if he's dead or alive? I really don't know anything. Well, I guess that's how the curse system of Hinamizawa works. It's possible you really don't know anything. Okay, then I'll change the question. As the head of the Kimiyoshi family, I would like you to tell me what you think has happened to Satoshi-kun. Is Satoshi-kun dead or alive? Kimiyoshi didn't know what to say. If he said he didn't know, I'd tighten the chain and leave the room. That would be like a death sentence for him. But all I said was that I wanted him to speak as the head of the Kimiyoshi family. I didn't ask him to tell the truth, but he didn't know what to say to avoid souring my mood and to get me to loosen the chains around him. He was obviously trying to figure out how to make me extend the chain. I've heard a rumor that he may be alive. About him going to Tokyo on a bullet train, right? The police have seen him in Tokyo, or something like that. Oishi had told me that Satoshi-kun had been witnessed getting on a bullet train heading to Tokyo at Nagoya Station. But the police didn't know if that really happened, or what became of Satoshi-kun after that. Therefore, this was simply a random assertion of Kimiyoshi's. Hey, head of the Kimiyoshi family, what would be the point in letting one of the cursed family members live, after going through the trouble of making him disappear? I don't think there's any reason for that. Besides, who gave you this information? I was in close contact with Oishi for a while, but he never mentioned it to me. Uncle, if you're just saying that to make me happy, it's not gonna work. You know that, don't you? I reached for the pulley controlling the chains around Kimiyoshi, and that act alone sent him panicking as he feared them tightening once more. Sorry! I'm not trying to make you angry, Shion-chan. I'm sorry! I don't have time for this. I'm simply asking you to help me look for Satoshi-kun, that's all. I know that. I'll answer you. I took my hand off the pulley. Seeing that, Kimiyoshi began making loud groaning noises to try and show he was thinking hard. Be frank with me. Do you think he is alive or dead? I think... You shouldn't think he is alive. That figures. There was no point in letting him live, right? I agree with you. I really didn't mean anything too deep by it, but what I said truly scared Kimiyoshi. The police think he ran using the money he saved to buy Satoko's birthday present because he was the main suspect of his aunt's murder. What do you think about that? Well, I heard that the culprit was some kind of drug addict. What do you think about that? Maybe I shouldn't say this, but I believe Satoshi-kun is the culprit. The drug addict was probably a decoy Grandma arranged. I've suspected as much. That guy appeared out of nowhere. I didn't understand it at the time. So he was a decoy. I'm pretty sure. Why do you think that, though? The police were investigating the case, and Satoshi-kun was their primary suspect, wasn't he? If he was going to be demoned away, she didn't want the police to continue the investigation, I guess. Kimiyoshi just said is very interesting. He's perfectly correct. If the police continued their investigation, it would complicate things for whoever demoned away Satoshi-kun. Therefore, the hag came up with a decoy in order to bring an end to the investigation. But fabricating a suspect can't be that easy, don't you agree? The only person who could do things like that is Oryo-san. I knew Grandma was very powerful in the underside of Hinamizawa, but I never knew she was that powerful. I'm sure you've heard quite a few rumors during the dam conflict. Didn't you also hear things directly? During the dam protests, I actually saw them issuing orders to my relatives, like destroy their heavy machinery, or can we set up a checkpoint to blockade their construction vehicles. They set free their comrades from the police by coming up with alibis, destroying or forging evidence. I had seen relatives do these things, as well as the hag calling in counselors to the house to protest. As a child, I was pretty impressed, but when I thought back, it was more than that. She was truly the mastermind who controlled the underside of the world. You've heard about the kidnapping case of the grandson of the Minister of Construction, right? So it was really a kidnapping, huh? I heard the grandson was demoned away and then found in the middle of the mountains in Takatsudo or Yagauchi. That was at Oryo-san's command. The minister promised to stop the dam construction and the grandson was released. All the top people in the ex-Guardians know that. I guess I was right in the middle of it when it was happening, but I didn't notice. The hag, the three families, and the ex-Guardians are truly magnificent, huh? How terrifying! Kimiyoshi finally realized the situation he was in, and he was answering my questions. That made me happy, but The more Kimiyoshi told me the truth, the more I realized Satoshi-kun really was dead. That made me very sad. Who actually demoned away Satoshi-kun? I don't know. We were never to ask who actually executed Oryo-san's orders. He was right. That was how the system worked. And so that was a bad question. Whoever it was did a great job because his body hasn't been found. That's not easy. Putting aside who actually killed him, it is possible Oryo-san has helped to get rid of the body. You know about the well farther down from here, the one used to dump bodies, don't you? Yeah, I do. It's a lot safer to dump a body in the well than to bury it somewhere in the mountains. Whoever disappears becomes a sacrifice to calm the anger of Oyashiro-sama. That was the rule of this game. Therefore, the bodies must never be discovered. That's why the bodies had to be dumped somewhere nobody could find them. It's very possible that the well was used for that. Then Satoshi-kun is at the bottom of that well? I grabbed a flashlight and headed to the huge cave with all the cells. As I turned on the lights in the cave, Mio noticed me and gave me a worried look. I ignored her and headed to the cell in the back. I was still very impressed by how the well was hidden. It was almost artistic. I shone the flashlight at the bottom of the well. I had no way of knowing how deep the well was. The light of the flashlight wasn't strong enough to reach the bottom. I inhaled, then screamed into the well. Satoshi-kun! Satoshi-kun! Satoshi-kun's name echoed again and again. It was obviously a very deep well. I thought of climbing down using the wedges on the wall, but with the flashlight hanging from my neck, I couldn't light my footing properly. And even if there was enough lighting, I didn't even know if the wedges were sturdy enough. It would be like committing suicide. Satoshi-kun was at the bottom of this well. That's when I felt it. A warm hand rubbed my head, for sure. Shion, you finally found me. Satoshi-kun. Satoshi-kun. Satoshi-kun! I've been looking for you for so long. I'm sorry I couldn't find you while you were still alive. Sorry. I'm sorry. It's not your fault, Shion. There was nothing you could have done before I was killed. But you did everything you could do after I was dead. Satoshi-kun, I want to join you. I'm coming right now. I'm gonna jump, so please catch me. Satoshi-kun smiled bitterly. I was saddened to see him reject me. Shion, I'm happy that you found me. But you're alive, Shion. It's so important to be alive. You can't waste it. If you aren't here, I don't want to live. I want to be with you, Satoshi-kun. I want to be close to you. I want you to rub my head again. I want to spend time with you. I'll be a good girl. I want to be with you. Live. Do I have to? Live and enjoy your life, okay? What's so fun about living alone? You'll find out, so long as you're alive. To live. I will live. I will live. The eerie well now felt warm. I wasn't allowed to go down to the bottom, but the edge of this well was the place where you and I could meet. Hell nah, this be crazy. Mion. Satoshi-kun. I found him. He's at the bottom of the well, isn't he? I think so. I can't think of anywhere else he'd be. Mion started to sob. You weren't there when Satoshi-kun was killed, were you? No. On the bright side, Shion, Christmas will be way cheaper. God damn it. Who the hell is messaging me while I'm streaming? If you were there, would you have begged Grandma to forgive him? Yes! I would have begged her to let him live. Liar. Huh? You liar! On that day, a year ago, I just recalled how cruel Mion was then, when she forced me to rip out my nails, acting in her role as the successor. Even if she was there when Satoshi-kun was killed, she wouldn't have stopped being the successor. Satoshi-kun was brought to the torture room. When he saw Mion, I'm sure he thought she would save him. Even as he heard the family head read out his death sentence, I'm sure he looked at Mion and believed that she would save him. He believed Mion was acting that way only because she was with her relatives. He believed she would help him, but she didn't do anything. He was strapped to a restraining device, yet she still wouldn't do anything. Mion was cruel. Mion, isn't it about time to help me? I see. I get it. You're with the rest of the family members, so you can't even show even a hint of compassion. That sucks. Yeah, Trumps enjoyed that? You're welcome. As a gift, I'll not repeat that one. Help him! Help him! Why? Why didn't you help him? You saw him looking at you, begging to help him, didn't you? Why didn't you help him? Even when he was going through a rough time because of his awful aunt, you didn't help him! You pretended to sympathize, but you didn't help him! You ignored him! He was cornered because you didn't help him! I tried to support him! So no, they're as bad as Joel's big bropper in the morning from the Mario Maker streams. God, yeah, that was fucking bad. Even when you didn't protect him from killing his aunt, I did! I sacrificed myself to fight for him! 3 nails were nothing! But it wasn't enough to rescue Satoshi-kun. I couldn't help him. Do you know why? Because I was Shion then. As Shion, I was kept away from Hinamizawa, and nobody told me anything. I couldn't know anything. But you were different. You were Mion. You were right in the middle of everything, and you knew everything, and everyone told you everything. If I were you, I could have helped Satoshi-kun. I would have. But you were Mion. Give it back, Mion. That name isn't just yours. It's mine, too. Besides, it was mine to begin with, remember? I just let you be Mion, remember? It was mine. Give it back to me. Give me my name back. I can't stand that you even look like Mion. If I were Mion then... Ah! I kicked the bars. I kicked them again and again. Mion curled up fearfully in the back of her cell, as if she were trying to prevent the bars from crashing down onto her. Notebook page 188. Achievement unlocked. Tying your own noose. Let's view the final tip for today's stream, and then we'll be done. After that, I joined the youth group in the search for Kimiyoshi. I went down to the town council's phone directory and called to see if he had visited, then had the group split according to the circular notice divisions, and sent them to search the town. Everybody seemed to be assuming they wouldn't find him. But since I knew they definitely never would, it was just bothersome to me. Even after midnight, they were all still enthusiastically looking for him. All that in just a single cough. My throat hurts, man. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. What'd you expect? A coughing fit? I've been doing these streams for fucking like 20 streams now. Even after midnight, they were all still enthusiastically looking for him. I bore the sleepiness while yawning. Then I heard somebody whisper. Last year, we did the same thing when Satoshi Hojo-kun went missing. The youth group was looking for someone who would never be found, just like last year. I was yawning because I knew this. Last year, there must have also been some people who were yawning and grinning on the inside. When did we stop searching last year? Do you remember? Huh? When Satoshi Hojo-kun was missing? Oh, what time was it? I guess that was around midnight. It was already 2 in the morning. Although they spent this much time searching for Kimiyoshi, they didn't do the same when Satoshi-kun was missing. After all, some people knew they wouldn't find him. They must have been sleepy. They must have said they should leave it to the police. Shit. I want to kill the people who said that. Well, there you go. We have officially embarked on our descent into complete and utter insanity. And violence and darkness. So, we'll have to see how that continues next time. It's possible that next time will be the last stream. I want to say there's only 3 chapters left. If that's the case, I could probably do it in 1 stream. Probably not more than 2 streams at most, if I had to guess. So, yeah. Thanks for coming along. Hope it was engaging.
And I don't know when I'm going to stream more. Possibly this weekend, but I'm not 100% on that. So we'll see. Thanks again, and goodbye. Yes, I'm sure. Okay.